According to the last mail, right on. See you there. So I can, yeah. So he should be done. He should be here. We'll see. Patience, grasshopper. He did say that last week too. Which would be just one more reason for me not to trust otaku types if he flakes again. But that's the last thing. Because I have other people now lined up who wanted to do the show. And I was like, nah, I already got a guess. Haven't seen Ken lately. I mean, Ken's in LA, so I only see him ever so often. Oh, yeah, okay. I don't know why, but I've been making a lot of retarded purchases lately. I bought these yesterday in Shibuya. What do you think? Huh? I think it makes me look erudite. Yes, that's right. But this is going to be my new interview glasses, because I think people are more likely to give you a job if you're wearing glasses. Well, yes. Now it's time for books with Kevin. I don't need glasses. I need suspenders too, yeah. Like the American suspenders, not British suspenders. That would be an entirely different show. You should meet the Japanese people. Well, if you mean the Japanese PBS, you mean like public broadcasting system. That's basically what I work for already. Like, you know, NHK essentially is PBS. It's more similar to the BBC actually, but thoughts on TGIF of the 90s? Like as in the restaurant TGIF? Yeah, golly, full suspenders with no shirt is only sexy for a fireman. Oh, television. Oh, the old, yeah, like the Friday lineup. I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I watch an insane amount of TV. Oh, dude, you made it. Sorry, I didn't expect you. Sorry. I was partaking of a little tobacco. I guess just here. That's awesome. Most people, which are obviously not most people, are retarded, and they get lost, and then there's the email and a phone call, and they're like, I'm in front West, I don't see it. Where are you?
I went on the south side, and I was lost for a second, and I was like, wait, the west and south are kind of like together, so I went searching.
Holy shit, John Dobbs calling me.
Probably because I emailed him. It's like, do you know where?
Hey, dude. Yeah. He's sitting right in front of me. Yeah, no, I got him. He's sitting right here.
There's your number right there.
Thanks, dude. Later. Bye. John. Well, actually, John was a guest on the show
Oh,
just a little
really?
while ago. Here, come sit next to me so we can snuggle.
It's very warm up here, for sure.
It is. I actually am a big fan of this. And if you'd like to order some lunch, are you eating?
I have not, no, just came.
It's on the budget, so.
Ooh.
And I think there's actually a drink and set. I've had the beef curry rice. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Maybe the sandwiches are good too. I don't know.
I'll go with beef curry rice, I think, then.
All right. So let me introduce you to my little internet friends. They may not recognize you without your hair.
I wish I had a bathroom to change in, yeah.
Many of the people watching today saw the episode, the Akihabara episode.
Oh, really?
On Wednesday.
That's good. Good to know.
So basically,
I actually haven't seen it yet, so they know more than I do about that episode. But.
So over here is like their comments. He's not Super Saiyan today. No. There was people asked, is he going to come dressed in the Dragon Ball Z outfit?
I'm so sorry. It was I came from Akihabara just like maybe 10 minutes ago, and I actually didn't have my bag of stuff with me, and I thought that it wouldn't be enough time, so I didn't. I can't change like Clark Kent, you know. I'm not just rip off my shirt and I'm Superman. You know, it takes time. It takes, especially the booties. The booties take some time to get on.
Booties?
I have booties, like the little covers on my boots that make me look like Goku feet. Those bad boys take some time to get on just right. So, yeah.
Right. And so these are the people in the room.
Okay.
This is my bouncer. Because occasionally douchebags come in.
Okay.
Like me-chan people and stuff like that. And they say, you're a faggot. This is the number of people. Actually, sorry. This is the number of people in the room.
Okay.
And basically, in the beginning, I have some questions I want to ask you. And then afterwards, we're going to kind of throw it to them and any questions they want. I can also record certain sections. So if there's something that like you think for posterity, like a message you want to give, we can record that. And then people who couldn't make it to the live show can watch that later.
Sure, that'd be great.
And get the information. Essentially, I mean, I think Akihabara is going to be the majority of our discussion today.
Okay.
But many of my friends are not otaku or into manga, stuff like that. Okay. So first, let's swing out of the way. Like, who are you and how did you get here? A lot of people are very interested in how did you actually physically end up in Japan? Like, you know, what was it? Not so much the sweeping. Like, you know, I saw a samurai movie when I was a kid. Like, you know. Like, what's the process you went through? How did you get your first visa? You know, things like that. And first, to start off, could you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. My name is Patrick W. Galbraith. I'm a PhD student at the University of Tokyo. I research otaku, Akihabara. Basically, I'm more interested in images and culture, like the way technology and media impacts culture than I am actually the people themselves so much. So I'm more interested in flows of information, and like that's why Akihabara is so interesting to me, because actually the place itself doesn't really exist so much as the image, or like what happened to the place is more kind of like exchanges of images among people starting in the 1990s and so on. But I like to kind of look at Akihabara because it has so many layers of kind of meaning attached to it, but actually if you go there and you kind of try and cut through the layers, you see a very different kind of area. So I spend almost every day, I have to admit, almost every day I'm in Akihabara doing research, and also my hobbies and stuff are also located in that area. I'm a so-called moe otaku, which is not a good thing. I admit that right now. Yes, I am a pervert. I mean the best way, in the best possible way. I like a certain kind of anime.
Don't worry, you're amongst friends.
Okay, and so my visa. Basically, I came here on a student visa. Mm-hmm. So I was at University of Montana, I think, at the time, and I was trying to do like an exchange program. I was doing journalism and Japanese. So one of the requirements was to come to Japan, and I came in 2004 on an exchange program. I think it was to the Hikakubunka Gakubu, so like the Faculty of Comparative Cultures at the Sophia University. Okay. And from there, I kind of came back on another student visa, and then I was trying to think of ways I could get out of it, because you're actually limited on how much you can work.
And what is the limit, like 25 hours?
It's really low. I think it's 20 hours maybe a week.
20 hours.
and so you really can't make ends meet with that, especially since that. And so I came back in 2006 again on a student visa, this time to go to graduate school. And at that time, I basically just did my thing. I worked like maybe 10 jobs, I think, at the same time that I was going to university, while I wasn't really going to university. And so my visa was like way overextended. And actually, I did get the letter in the mail that was like, hey, you're a student and you have like this really nice apartment in Gotondo. How did you get that? And I was like, well, so I was actually audited by the Japanese government.
Oh, really?
So I was, yeah. I'm one of the only people I think who was actually threatened with deportation. They actually told me, unless you can like account for your jobs and where your money comes from, we're going to have to, come down and kind of look at your bills and stuff.
I mean, I understand like rules are rules and whatnot, but like, really, is this? Are you the person they need to be?
I don't think I'm such an illegal alien, but
there's like a triad running methamphetamines in Kabukicho, who's like walking around like unmolested, and they're going after like
the student who's working 9 jobs.
Yeah, a student who's working to pay for his education and housing. Yeah.
I really don't like. I can go with you on that one. So I really don't like the immigration authority. I really don't like that.
Nobody is.
But so I changed my visa to spousal visa. That's what I am now. So I can work, I can also study, I can do pretty much anything. The only difference is when you're on a spousal visa, you're kind of like stuck in between this strange thing, because you are married to a Japanese national, but you're not a Japanese national. So you can work, but you're not a citizen, and so you have certain rights. You don't have other rights. You have to pay taxes, but you don't get to vote, and so on and so forth. So it's a strange.
And if that bitch is crazy, who knows what's gonna happen? Like
I hope my wife isn't crazy. I hope she's not crazy. She might be, because she married me, so she might be crazy. But
because the same thing. I went to a lawyer recently. I was talking about. I'm freelancing and do lots of different work. I've got different contracts with NHK and other companies, stuff like that. And then my visa is getting in July, so that's coming up. I'm starting to sweat it out. I'm like, so I was thinking about like setting up my own company, and then from that, trying to get a visa through my company to employ myself. And like the lawyer is listening to me. He's like, yeah. Do you know any Japanese women? And I was like, yeah. I was like, why don't you just get married? Just get married. Just get married. It's done, And I was like, well, He was like, trust me, it's a lot easier.
it's a lot easier than trying to hire yourself.
But like when the lawyer is telling you, like, you really should just get married. I mean, I can understand it from my mom, but but from the lawyer is saying like your best option here is to just get married. But it is. It takes away a lot of the headaches. And how many years have you been here?
I've been here since 2004, but I moved here permanently in 2006. So this is my third year, I guess.
Because my visa ends in July, just at 9 years, and I've heard that like 10 is pretty much the cutoff for permanent residency, which is another great option. But I'd have to renew my visa at least one more time and stay another year or two.
Isn't it like?
To get it. Although, like, actually, you might even have a better chance than I of getting permanent residency, because like they'll count the spousal status and like your work in academics can be seen as a valuable like product towards Japanese society. So they go like person by person and say like, but a lot of people with like PhDs and things like that, professors, authors, people who play basketball, baseball, or soccer very well.
Soccer players, gotta get them in.
Soccer players get like a permanent visa like 1 year. If you can kick a ball, you've got it. That, or you've got to be like a lifetime. Kind of you've committed a lot of time to giving something to Japanese society. But it's a perennial issue, the visa thing.
For sure, and actually, when I got my spousal visa, I think this is because of the problems I had with my income. They actually only gave me a 1 year visa. So even though I'm married and I gave all the papers, they're like, well, we're gonna give you 1 year, just see how it works out. What? So I heard that you're guaranteed like a certain amount of years, right? Like I think it's at least 3, and then it expands into the permanent residency. But they're like, well, how about 1 year? Let's see how it goes.
Scariest thing I ever saw. I was in the immigration office in Shibuya. And there's just like 70-something women sitting next to me, like in the gaijin section. And I'm like, excuse me, I gotta ask, what are you doing here? Like, I understand why I'm here. He's like, oh, I'm renewing my visa. And it's like, well, how long have you been here? She's like, 65 years. was like, what? It's like, yeah, I'm a Korean national. I've lived here, almost all my adult life. But she still has to go down to the Kyoto every now and then, get her visa extended. And I'm sure with her, it's automatically done, but it's just like, wow.
It's kind of like a driver's license.
As Pit Pressure says, damn, that's crazy. It is. Anyway, back to you. The PhD, that's amazing. What's your thesis in?
Well, it's kind of information studies. Information studies it's not really defined. It's more like there's some people who do computer sciences or information technology. There's some people who do like what I do is ethnography. So I study people who use technology and information in certain ways. Like B-Channel is one paper that I'm writing, but it's really a very broad thing. It's kind of like one of those new hybrid degree programs where they have lots of different disciplines coming together. But my thesis is on otaku, actually, so otaku and otaku culture.
If you had taken some other turn somewhere along your life, could you have ended up studying bohemianism in I don't know, Czechoslovakia, or African tribal music in Namibia? Or was it pretty much preordained that you're going to be in Tokyo to study? Because that type of study could be applied to anything.
It's true, yeah, it's true. I think in my case, though, the academic stuff kind of just came out of my own personal interest. So for me, there would be nothing else I would do. I just was studying animation when I first encountered it in Alaska. So it was in Japanese, I didn't know what it was. My brothers were watching it, I kind of got interested, and I became kind of obsessed with it. And so from there, I went to university kind of just because I didn't know what else to do, and I wanted to watch more anime. And if you go to university, then you have more time, more free time. It's true.
Yeah, never graduate from school. If anyone out there is still in school, just stay forever in school.
In school forever. Trust me. It's the freest place in the entire world. Stay in school.
Stay in school. Not stay in school till you graduate high school. I mean stay in school for life.
Forever.
Yeah. Get that third master's.
Just keep going, doctoral, postdoc. Just keep going forever. So
then just goodwill hunting, just mop the floors in Harvard when you're done with that.
Right. What you don't want to do is get a job. So when you get a job, your anime watching time is gone. Right.
Yeah.
So I call myself a communist. The reason why is not because I hate capitalism, but it's because I don't want to get a job.
Yeah.
That's the reason why. I really do not want to get a job.
Anything to avoid getting the job. That's awesome. Did you want to order any food or anything, by the way?
Yeah, I better grab something.
I'm guessing since your name is Patrick, you're of Irish descent.
Yeah, Scotch Irish. Beef cardiac.
And the orange hair. That kind of gives it away as well.
This is actually my Scottish kind of thing, right? Actually, my family is, I think, rare in the United States because it's 100% Scottish lineage. Right. My mother's family is all Scottish. My father's family is all Scottish. I've never been there, but and then I guess my family moved from Scotland to Ireland after this failed attempt to side with the British during one of the uprisings. So we're kind of like one of those Scottish families who was chased away to Ireland, but I guess the lineage is still 100% pure.
That's awesome. So
I'm strangely an anomaly, I guess.
What? So basically, if I understood right, you would you have a PhD if you hadn't gotten interested in anime?
I don't think so. No, I think probably what I would have done if I didn't go to university. I was in Montana at the time, so when I first was thinking about university, I actually pretty much stopped going to high school, and I was on a farm, basically doing work. My brothers had all kind of moved away from Montana. Montana is not the best place in the world for any of you who know about it.
Big sky country.
Right. It's beautiful, but the economy is really bad. So my brothers had moved away, and my father had left. So I was stuck with kind of this farm responsibility. My mother, my sister, my younger brother, and myself. And so basically it was like I had to stay in Montana and do this stuff. And so I was thinking about my options. My options were either to stay on the farm and keep working or try to get into university. And so I was thinking about taking different tests and so on and so forth. And I went to University of Montana because they had a journalism program, and I always liked to write. And so I was lucky to kind of get in that way. I'm really terrible at mathematics and science and stuff like that, but in Montana they have a very specific program in journalism, and so I kind of slipped in the back door there, which is great. But it's like
Montana mathematics is like,
yeah.
Well, if you got four
bales of hay and 3 bales of hay.
No offense to anyone in Montana, lovely people.
I'm from there, so I have the right. I have the right.
No.
Anyway, so it's like it was really clear options: stay here for the rest of your life and become a bedrooter, become the part of the rut is what they call it, part of the rut there, or move away. And so my mother had just decided to sell the farm at the time when I had made this decision myself. So it was really fortuitous timing. She decided to move on. I decided to move on. So it was kind of like went to university, and from there I just kept going, kept running, and now I'm in.
I don't know if this is a strange analogy, but sort of like inner city kids who are like, oh man, I want to get out of here. I'm going to become a basketball star, something like that, or get out of here. Is that like the white Montana kid's dream? Is like, I'm going to get out of here. So I'm going to go to Tokyo and Otaku.
I think you love it or you hate it. I mean, some people do really love it. Like, actually, everybody I knew in high school has not left. They're all still there. And of course, they weren't really like friends, but they were in my same class. They all stayed. And I'm the only one who actually left. I think it's a different kind of person who likes Montana, and I'm just not one of them. I mean, it's kind of like I spent since I was 12, I guess, until I came here, so 22, until my early 20s in Montana. And so I personally had a little bit enough of it. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life doing what I had done up until that point. But I think some people really like it. It's a slow life. It's a good life if that's what you want. But I personally wanted something different. Like, I'd never even seen a passenger train. I only saw like the big what do you call lumber trains going between Hamilton, Montana and Missoula, Montana. And so when I came to Tokyo, it's like, wow, there's all these people who ride the train, nobody has a car. I was so excited. And it's like,
well, I'm from New York even, and when I remember the first time I was going to take the Shinkansen, I get on the tracks and I'm like, there's a train waiting on the tracks. I'm like, all right, this must be my train. And I get on, actually, I walk in the door, and I'm like, wait a minute, and I step off again, and I realize that was the train before my train. My train was going to be leaving from that same tracks 3 minutes later. Like another super high-speed express train. And it's like, wait, you've got one of these freaking things like every 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, it blew my mind. Like, for me to go visit, like, my parents live in way upstate New York now.
Okay.
Up towards Montreal. And I love blowing Japanese people's minds with this. There's one train per day from Montreal to Washington, D.C., and then it turns around and it goes back.
The same train?
Well, there's 2 trains total. One goes northbound, one goes southbound, and then the next day they turn around and go back, in opposite directions. Like, but that's, like, as far as Amtrak, that's the best we've got. It's kind of sad. But I mean, it was a big shock for me. A word that you mentioned, lucky. You were lucky that you went to journalism school. I find that word gets used for me a lot. It's one of the most common compliments, I guess. You say, "Oh wow, you're so lucky to live in Japan." Is it luck?
I think you can. It's definitely luck that you get the right chances, but at the same time, you have to prepare yourself for the chances. I think so. It's like when the opportunity arises, you have to kind of be ready to make the right decisions to go that direction. But it's luck that actually gives you the chance. So for sure, I think it's a combination of preparation and then just getting a chance to luck into it.
Yeah, because actually, your Japanese is probably better than mine. You've been here less time, even, so I have no excuse. But like, you were just talking about like the difficulties you had with visas. You came from a farm on Montana. Like, none of this to me says luck. There was no, like, you did not open a candy bar and find a golden ticket inside that said, now you get to go live in Tokyo and spend every day in Akihabara doing what you love. And so, like, whenever I get that comment, like, oh wow, you're so lucky, it's like, no, it's actually not luck. It's not luck. It was, years of time, sweat, and money spent on learning the language, balls enough to change my situation. Like you said, everyone else from your town is still in that hometown. Because they were like not willing to change their given situation. So like, to me, there is some luck. I obviously had some luck in my life. I wasn't born a crack baby. That's
luckier.
That would have cut down my odds of like my current life. But like, it takes work. But the thing that's so awesome about it is it's entirely doable.
Yeah, for sure.
It's entirely doable if you just like put your ass to work and get done what you need to get done.
But even with the economy the way it is, I mean, I think what's interesting about, like, in my own experience with otaku people, I think if you really want to do something, you really do go for it. Like, I know a guy who has like a pretty irregular work. He lives in Southern California, and he's been to Japan, I think, 9 times now. He's in Japan right now, a friend from that area. And, I don't know where he gets the money, but it's a dedication. He wants to come back, and one day he wants to move here, and so on and so forth. So he's kind of like really going for it.
Yeah.
So I think you're right in a way. You really, if you make like a decision, like I want to do this, then you kind of move towards that, and you can make sacrifices in other places and so on.
Another weird question. John, who was on the TokyoCooney episode with us, was the same, and I know I'm the same. I'm the only foreign TV writer, like to write a drama in Japan, essentially. I mean, you're
writing TV dramas?
I wrote a TV drama, yeah.
Oh wow!
You have written literally the book on otaku.
Thank you.
You like John has the #1 most popular website for.
Yeah, he's really doing well.
Who told you how to do this? Where did you get, like, did somebody say, oh, this is what you should do? No, it's like you essentially created your own niche. I'm guessing. I mean, did any of the jobs you're doing now exist before you started doing them?
No, actually, I got a lot of criticism when I decided to study otaku in university, because I think there's a lot of confusion about the word otaku in the group itself, but it's not actually very positive in Japan. And so I went to university and I said, like, my project will be on this group of people who's known as otaku. It is a certain kind of social existence. And my advisor was like, no, you want to write about, changes, like urban changes in Akihabara. You want to write about, dating simulator games, but you don't want to write about otaku. Yeah. So actually, for a while, I was saying that my degree was in otaku studies as a joke, as kind of like a way to flip a bird to my advisor. But there's no such thing as otaku studies and things like this. So actually, I think you're right. You do really kind of you kind of have to make a niche and just kind of like go for it. But
most of the people I know, like foreign dudes who have been successful here, above and beyond like what normal people do, they created their own industry. Or they created their own business. So there is no like set path where you're just like, oh, you go do this, and then there you go. There's your dream life, spending your life doing what you want to do, like living what you love. I mean, like essentially you have to create it from scratch. Again, that's. I mean, to me that I'm moved. I'm getting verklempt, like Montana farm boy to. PhD author on otaku in Tokyo. That's like a crazy life story.
But there was a step in between there though when I started doing the tour actually. So that was kind of like, speaking of niches, I think that kind of was like what I did that maybe really helped out. Like I was spending every day in Akihabara anyway, and then I started doing the weekly tour. And I think that really was a big step, because when I started doing that, it was kind of like I was doing the university stuff at the same time that I was doing this other thing. And I think this really helped. Like when I was doing the research proposal at university, I was able to tell my advisors, well, I have this kind of ethnographic field work going on in Akihabara through this tour I'm doing. So I think you're right, kind of doing that tour and making that niche actually gave me a certain view on the area and on the ways that the area is structured that really helped out, I think, in making it the way it, if I've made it at all, to make it this.
You have to. Actually, what I want to do now is I'm going to let you eat a little bit. I'm going to plug your book a bit so you can eat. So this is Patrick's book, the Otaku Encyclopedia, which of course has a very breastful made.
Breast delicious
made on the inside of that. So I don't know if you mind. Someone throw out a word that you'd like to hear the Patrick definition of, and try and come up with a good word. Not something like, I don't know, maybe something a little difficult.
That's the boy right there.
Moe?
The first word out of the box. Thank you. I love that word. It's my favorite word.
Moe. Literal meaning, to bud. Ah, like a flower. Yeah, to bud. Moe actually means to bud like a flower. And a pun on the homonym to burn. Moeru. Moeru is, to burn. Is used on otaku to mean getting fired up for budding young beauties. It can be used as an adjective, sore ga moe, that is moe, or a verb, rei ni moeru, I burn for rei. It can further describe moe in the moe response to an object. Although moe has been part of the Japanese vocabulary since the 7th century, really?
It appeared in poems first.
Wow, so the word goes back to 7th century. Precisely why the word entered contemporary use is unclear. One story has it the term came from a mistaken keystroke on Nichan, changing the character for to burn into to bud. This is possibly due to the way Japanese word processors automatically turn the hiragana of the Japanese alphabet into kanji Chinese characters. The word was adopted into Nichan speak and spread quickly among otaku. Some other stuff in here. So that's what moe means. Moe. Ofukai. If they come up with a word you don't have in here, you have to have a part 2.
I'm actually thinking about if it's possible to do an expanded edition, but Kodansha, the publisher of the book, Kodansha International, they don't want to do a larger book. So if they did a larger book, it would take, I guess it would have to cost more. And so they're worried about kind of the pricing and stuff like that. And also apparently the bookshelf size, like in a lot of stores, has to be like a certain small size, I guess. So for marketing and pricing reasons, they decided to go with the smaller book. So I think maybe doing a follow-up or a second edition might be a really good compromise.
Ofukai, someone asked about that word. Offline meeting. Meeting people you normally deal with online in an offline face-to-face context. Among otaku, this usually occurs in groups at events. Good word. Tsundere. Tsundere. That tsundere part of the video, that freaked me out. To be honest.
That's actually one of my favorite cafes. You didn't like it? You didn't like it?
I enjoyed it. It was very fun. It was the other customers that freaked me out. And the fact that she was referring to me as her brother.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I kind of want to have sex with her. And
okay, you just throw that out there, aren't you? Okay. All right.
She was an attractive woman, and I don't know how I felt about her calling me brother. In that context. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But incest is best.
Yeah.
Wincest, as they call it. I don't have a sister, so I can say that. It's not creepy. But there was just something about it that was a little bit like it's the language, it's the role playing part of this.
Role play, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's a maid cafe where it's a limited amount of role playing. It's just like you're an honored customer. That's enough. But when it gets into like more heavy role playing, like we're pretending to be members of the same family, I wonder what they're doing. So tsundere, word combining the onomatopoeia tsunsun, which suggests turning your head away in disgust, with dere dere, to turn all lovely devi. As the literal translation implies, this means characters who are particularly moody. It's important to note that tsundere is not a character type per se, but rather a developmental process wherein an icy character shows their warm side over the course of time. Relationships between rivals and deeply important relationships, soulmates, best friends, in anime and manga often follow this pattern. The term tsundere was first made popular in the hit Gyaruge Kimi ga Nozomu Ein. There are now tsundere events at Akihabara maid cafes where the waitresses go out of their way to be mean to customers, but finally melt down when he or she is about to leave. I understand about half of what's in this. I don't know, it's hard to say, but is understanding otakudom, this culture, essential, you think, to understanding Japan as a whole?
I think for sure that what you can learn from otaku culture is part of learning about contemporary Japanese culture. Like, there's been books written that suggest that perhaps the developmental pattern of otaku culture is kind of like an accelerated developmental pattern for the rest of Japan.
As go the otaku, so eventually will go the rest of the society.
Is one way of thinking, like the hyper-consumption, the exchanges on the level of image, kind of the lack of content, more kind of dealing with images and ideas on a very surface level. There's a lot of people who are saying that perhaps this might be the new way. And actually, I'm not sure if you talked about it on this program before, but the vegetarian boys or the herbivore boys.
Soshoku danji. Yeah, I think I mentioned this on the show. So Soshoku danji are men who basically do not exhibit typical male, I don't know, things like chasing ass and working really hard to get a promotion. They're more laid back and they just kind of want to, hang out and read a book and,
But if you think about it, the Soshokukei Danshi is based on two things, right? They have their own hobby, and they're deeply into their hobby. They're not so interested in the opposite sex, right? So they're more interested in kind of a personal consumptive behavior.
Yeah.
And there's some people who would argue that the only difference between Moe Otaku and Soshokukei Danshi is one is popular and the other is not. So I think that it could be that we're all kind of going in a certain direction in post-industrial societies.
Yeah, I mean, there was recently a poll done, I saw it in Japan Times a couple days ago. 40% of married people in Japan do not want to have children.
It's up to 40%?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Which is frightening. I mean, like, who the hell's going to pay for my retirement? But like 40%, and the reasons are because basically they just want to spend their money on their own interests. You got, as you're saying, this consumption culture, buying things, whether it be brand bags or whether it be cosplay outfits. I mean, I've definitely seen it just in main society. I'm known actually for hating Harajuku and
really?
I despise that place. Not so much. I mean, there's good parts of it, specifically things that are good, but it's just like to me it symbolizes that consumption as religion. The whole purpose of Harajuku or Onosando is defining your own self-identity based on what it is you buy.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me is morally troubling.
That kind of very flexible, fluid identity, right? Through consumptive behaviors.
Because frankly, I wouldn't say there's no difference, and not an iota difference between some OL in her 30s buying a Louis Vuitton bag on Onosando and a 15-year-old girl on Takeshita-dori buying a punk, outfit or something like that. Just one is considered mainstream, the other one is considered subculture.
Right.
But essentially, they're both defining themselves through the clothing and purchases they make. But can you explain a little bit more about the book?
Sure.
Otaku Encyclopedia, A through Z, I'm guessing.
I was going to put in, kind of plus alpha, but it wouldn't fit. So, basically, the Otaku Encyclopedia is it's kind of a brief guide to the basic terms you need to understand contemporary Japanese culture, otaku culture. So there's some stuff in there that is kind of older. You're talking about kind of the origins of certain things or things that no longer exist. Brief kind of trends in the 1980s, 90s, 70s, and so on and so forth. But I'm including things in the encyclopedia that I think are absolutely necessary to understand the way things are right now. And then also things that are kind of used as a kind of a basis of comparison, like things that are happening in the United States or things that are happening in Europe and so on. So kind of like a way to look at Japanese culture, Japanese otaku culture, moe culture, akihabara culture today and kind of understand it a little bit more deeply. Because right now, kind of, the otaku culture is really going into this big revolution where there's so many people who are identifying as otaku. At the same time, there's all this kind of negativity towards the new generation of otaku. So I think what's necessary is kind of a little bit more understanding of what's going on in the group and what people need and what they're looking for and so on. So I wanted to kind of create a baseline, like a baseline for a discussion on contemporary Japanese culture. And of course, there's some things that are really new that aren't included in the book. Like in order to talk about things like Toho, for example. Now I want to talk about Toho.
Toho Cinema?
Toho is like a doujinshi game, so it's a doujin game. It's a fan-produced game.
I am such an old man.
Well,
because for me, Toho is the cinema group that produced all of Akira Kurosawa's films. You know, but
Yeah.
Toho is now this whole other
Well,
thing.
it's kind of like it's a success story because it was a fan-produced game that became this huge phenomenon. So really, it's really interesting group of interesting group and interesting production. But to talk about Toho, you first have to know about digital culture. You first have to know about otaku. You have to know about doujinshi and the entire market. So it's kind of like instead of talking like jumping straight to you know Toho, it's kind of taking steps. So there's some kinds of there's room of course for updates. There's also rooms for kind of like a more historical look at what's going on. But I think it's kind of like a rough and dirty guide to what's happening in Akihabara among Moe otaku today. I think it's a good place to start.
Where can they get said book?
The Otaku Encyclopedia is available on Amazon. You can also get it at Kinokuniya. Kinokuniya all over the world has it. I think Barnes & Noble, almost every major bookstore should have it, I believe, in every English-speaking country. So,
Even Scotland? Do they speak English there?
I don't know. I think there's a variant of English, but I can't understand it. I cannot understand a single word. Like when I was watching Trainspotting, I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
I need the subtitles. This is my last question, then we're going to throw it over to questions from them. Sorry to have been ignoring. I knew you guys were saying much stuff, but I wanted to get some basic stuff out of the way. Otherwise, because it gets so scattershot, like going from.
Oh, sure.
すいません、コーヒー一ついただきます。Would you like something?
Iced tea more by
I live in Ikebukuro. I've lived here for now 4 years, I guess. And just in the 4 years I've been here, I mean, Otome Road has always kind of been there. But this is Otome Road is over by Sunshine City. It's a street with a lot of bookshops specializing in dojinji, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the one who know, man on man love, or say man on boy on boy love, cartoon books aimed at a female audience.
Right.
And so there's it's like a mini Akihabara for women.
Right.
Just in the last 4 years I've been living in Ikebukuro, it's exploded. And now, like farther off, down back streets, I'm finding cosplay shops. I'm finding there's one transgender, like women to men, garçon pub. There's like just in a short amount of time, an explosion of stuff in terms of that culture. Do you think it means that like this culture is expanding everywhere generally, or is Ikebukuro specifically expanding larger? And is Ikebukuro now, anywhere like, is it on the map for otaku?
Oh yeah, I think for sure.
Because Akihabara is so dominant.
Yeah. Especially in the popular imagination, I think Akihabara is like the place everybody imagines, the place they want to go. It's kind of like the otaku central. But actually, Ikebukuro was around before Akihabara. Back in the day, I mean, Ikebukuro had like Animate, they had K-Books, they had like right along the same area there next to Sunshine 60. I mean, there was like all these stores dealing with pop culture. And sure enough, I mean, there was a lot of people who were going there and kind of like hanging out. There was boys and girls together at the time. Same is true of Shibuya, actually. There was a lot of like pop subculture stores there as well. But in the 1990s, basically there was hollowing out of Akihabara. A bunch of stores moved away during the recession, and you ended up kind of like with low rent. So people moved in and started niche stores, and basically the young male otaku dominated Akihabara, and so they left Shibuya, they left Ikebukuro, and they left the women. So you've got a gender segregation going on, but actually the group in Ikebukuro has a longer history than the group in Akihabara. So it's kind of an interesting case, but also the fact that they're becoming more known, especially in the 2000s. The whole name Otome Road is relatively new. A magazine kind of just like put that name on there, and also Mandarake moved in and they started putting up signs saying like Yaoi, boys love comics, for sale here. When Mandarake started putting up those signs, I think that all the women who were kind of in the area already kind of said, oh, okay, well, let's do that. And then K-Books put out a sign saying, well, we also carry exclusively boys love comics and so on. So in about 2003, 4, 5, around that time, Ikebukuro really started to change into kind of like the capital for female fans.
Yeah, 'cause that's around the time I moved to Ikebukuro. Yeah, interesting. All right, that's the last of my questions. I'm going to throw it out to you folks out there. Any questions you have for Patrick about the world of otaku, or really anything? I mean, he's also a gaijin. So, I mean, if you have just questions for a gaijin as well. we'd be happy to answer. That's a good question. How do you study Akiba?
Where is that question?
How do you study Akiba?
Okay. How do you study Akiba? Well, basically what I do is urban ethnography. So I go to Akihabara every day, and I basically will pick a corner or a place that I think is interesting or important, and I will hang out there for several days in a row and see who goes along the street at what time, what they're doing, and so on and so forth. And then over time, perhaps I get to know this person. I ask them questions like, what do you do here? What's going on? We hang out together. We go different places. And so it's kind of like I become a member of the community in the area of Akihabara culture. And then I kind of experience it bodily. And through my participation and my observations, I'm able to make an informed kind of analysis of the area. So it's kind of like going native is one way to put it. You go native and you kind of gather all this information. You end up with like a huge volume, basically, of information. And it's almost all useless, right? What you do is you go through there and you look for patterns, like what words people use, what stories they talk about, the ways to describe the area, and you kind of do an analysis of all the information. You come up with keywords, and you put the keywords together, and you come up with a certain kind of vision or a map of the area. And that's pretty much what I did with Akihabara. And the paper I wrote about Akihabara is about the changes that happened in about 2005, 6, or 7, around the time Akihabara was becoming a global media sensation. At the same time, the otaku were being chased off the streets because there's kind of this feeling that it's a showcase. We don't want these guys around. They're showing their underwear. They're wearing girls' uniforms and so on. So I looked at what I call a public otaku image. So the otaku are supposed to be a private group of people. And what you end up with in Akihabara in like the turn of around 2005 is the private becomes public. And I think that's a really interesting part about Akihabara. This whole otaku image, which is very dark and personal and very private and very weird, becomes a very public kind of thing at that time. And all these kinds of anxieties about the otaku people come out into the open. So I used Akihabara as a way to kind of like get a feel, get a bead on what the changes happening in otaku culture.
Just off that, though, you said before, you mentioned briefly, the word otaku has a somewhat negative connotation.
Yeah.
How did that originate? I know, of course.
Sure. Well, there's a standard narrative about how the otaku, the word appeared. So basically, people were talking to each other and they didn't want to say it directly, so they said the word otaku and this kind of thing. But actually, the way the word came into being was a guy named Nakamura Akio, who was part of this so-called new generation, Shinjinri, so the new breed of Japanese coming of age after World War II. So he came into the otaku community, the group of people who were like interested in animation, manga, games. And he said, well, you know what, we're kind of cool, and those guys at Kamike who like dojinshi, they're kind of not cool. And so we're new generation, and they are otaku. So he used it as a negative word to describe people in the otaku community that he didn't like. And then the same thing happened in 1989. So the Japanese media picked up this word and said, well, we don't like any of you, and so we call you otaku. So again, it was used as a negative discourse. And once again, Nakamori appeared, and he said, well, let's talk about the otaku generation in kind of the context of a negative spin that was happening with this otaku murderer, Miyazaki Tsutomu. So I mean, that was also a coincidence, really.
It was kind of like it was just some random dude who killed. What did he? I forget what he did exactly. He kidnapped a woman. He kept her for a while.
Actually, 4 little girls, and he didn't just kidnap them. He killed them. He brutalized them. He raped them. Actually, he cannibalized parts of them.
Jesus.
So it was probably the worst crime of its kind in Japanese history until that point. But the thing to remember about this is...
But then when the police searched his house, they found a bunch of magazines.
And like 6,000 videotapes.
And videotapes and animated stuff like that. So they're like, oh, well that... And then it became kind of in the public image, people who like collecting books are possible child murderers.
They're weird. And even now today, whenever somebody commits a crime, ever since that case... If you look at Japanese media, what's the first thing they do? What's in his room? And that becomes kind of like the way to talk about crime. It's a really strange thing, but He actually didn't. This is another thing that's kind of like interesting. They wouldn't let me put it in this book, by the way. Miyazaki Tsutomu, who was executed last year, did not know what otaku meant. When they arrested him, they asked him, like, "Are you an otaku?" And he said, "What? I've never heard this word before." So really, he liked. He was collecting videotapes. He liked animation. He liked TV shows. He liked slasher films and stuff like that. But at the same time, this word, he never used it to describe himself. This is completely from the outside coming in.
But then I think somewhat after around the Densho Otoko period, it suddenly became cute and harmless to be an otaku. So it kind of flipped around again.
At that time, another thing to kind of mention about Densho Otoko, you mentioned kind of like the otaku culture kind of becoming maybe a mainstream kind of thing. And for sure, at that time, I think Densho Otoko was described as kind of like a new model for masculinity in Japan. It's like Densho Otoko could be the next and actually leading man.
And actually, I don't see that much different from the Soushoku Danji, the herbivore man, and the Densho Otoko. Like, I don't really see that much of a clear difference between the two, you know. Sorry, back to questions from you folks. No, that's a good question. How common is it or possible for a gaijin to work in animation or be a mangaka? You know, is it accepted? Is it possible?
Sure. I mean, actually, there's a lady from Canada who's drawing her own manga right now. There's also Jamie Lano, who you might have heard about. Jamie Lano is from California. She's actually working with the creator of Prince of Tennis. She's one of his assistants. So there are people who work in the animation industry and there's manga industry, and there's also some people who are working in the animation industry, especially CG animation. There's a lot of people who are doing that from overseas who come to Japan and work in these companies. The thing is you might not want to pursue that path because actually manga writers and animators are about, I think, 40% or below the poverty line in Japan.
Yeah.
So it's really not like a high...
And more of it's being sent out to China and other countries that are doing actually the cell animation and stuff like that. Manny Monster, I'll get to your question in a second. I'm just going to... Oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Alright, how much were you influenced by the Otaking? I don't even know who the Otaking is.
You know the Otaking? Who asked that question?
This guy, Manny.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He asked that like 3 times, but I can't...
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, I love Okada Toshio. I mean, he was my hero. So the Otaking, by the way, is the king of otaku. He's Okada Toshio.
I'm just going to look it up in your book.
He used to be, actually, my university is the University of Tokyo, and one of the reasons why I went to that university is because he used to teach there in the mid-1990s. But there's a couple problems with Okada Toshio. One is he's a nativist. He talks about otaku culture as like specifically Japanese. There's something that goes back to the Edo period about this like urban culture, urbanity, and so on. And so he's kind of very exclusive about who he thinks an otaku is. He's also very exclusive of like the new otaku. He doesn't want them to be part of the otaku group. So actually, when I was writing the Otaku Encyclopedia in 2007-8, he released a book called "You Are Already Dead," addressed to the otaku community. He said, "You're all culturally dead." And so at that point, I felt like we had a division between us because I really respected him as kind of someone who took his hobbies and he took them to the next level. And in the 1990s, he was trying to kind of create a counterbalance to the Miyazaki Tsutomu incident. People said, well, otaku are sociopaths. He said, no. Actually, otaku are the next evolution, the next stage of human evolution. Of course, he was overstating the case, but he kind of created like a different discourse about otaku, and I always respected him for that. But at the same time, I think he's kind of lost track of what it means to be an otaku these days, and so he's kind of become almost an impediment to the development of otaku culture, which is a shame, because he was my hero.
It's kind of like a Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker kind of relationship.
He's my father, exactly.
Actually, I just remembered what it was I was going to say before. My favorite writing one of my favorite writing professors in university, he wrote the fantastic USA series Silk Stockings, if you've ever seen that. Horrible piece of shit. But he was an excellent teacher and a brilliant guy, this guy Evan. And all the young students, because we all wanted to be TV writers, would ask him, like, is it easy to become a TV writer? Can we become a TV writer? And his answer, which I think is the same answer for can you become a mangaka or can you become a whatever. His answer was, oh, it's easy. It's very, very easy to become a writer. It's very, very easy to become an accomplished, artist if you're good. If you suck, you're going to find that it's very, very difficult. Because there is always a demand for talented people.
That's true.
But even the most talented people may struggle for many years before they finally get like a break. I mean, they don't immediately get handed a job.
Right.
Like even the most talented people, many artists throughout history have died before they sold a painting or whatever.
Sure.
But essentially, if you do have some talent for it, if this really is your passion, you can do pretty much anything. But if you suck, the likelihood of being successful is far lower. It's a little bit painfully true. And the other thing is nobody knows, because I know so many people who are talented have such low self-esteem about their work, that they never give it a try. So, but yeah, there's like it's definitely possible to become a mangaka or do your own thing, make your own series. But it's just if you're untalented, it's far less likely.
It's also hard, I think, to take talent and make it a professional kind of thing. Because the thing that I noticed with a lot of my friends in Akihabara and in Japan in general is they have a lot of talent, like they're doujinshi writers. I know this one guy, John Hathaway. I want to plug him right now. He's like the best doujinshi artist in the world. He's been doing it for so long, and his work is like really, really good. But he's 31, I think, this year, and he has to get a job because he's not selling his work. He's selling his doujinshi. He's never published a professional manga. So even though he has all this talent, he's not able to take that talent and make it into like a professional career. I think a lot of people in Japan kind of do something similar. They end up with like this really intense hobby or talent, but taking that talent and kind of making it into something else, or making it into like monetizing it, is really difficult, I think, or professionalizing an amateur hobby or something like that. So
it is very difficult. Yeah. Hey, you're looking at two of them. Other questions for you guys? Gotta think. Hikikomori is kind of a question.
Where is it?
University. Know the exact pay. God, yeah, I have no idea how much you would be, as he said, below the poverty line as a starting artist, even on a successful anime or manga.
For sure.
And you'd be working 14, 15, 16-hour days, probably.
Jamie, by the way, is locked into a room with her sensei, I think, almost 2 weeks straight, working 12-hour days or something. So she works really hard, and of course she's not making much money doing this. So it does take a lot of... You have to kind of invest in this in order to kind of get something out of it. You're definitely going to be in debt for a long time. And the most of the talents you see on TV, also, this is kind of just something I heard the other day, so I want to kind of throw it out there. Actually, the first couple years that people are on Japanese television, they're almost always in debt.
Oh, yeah.
A couple, almost $10,000, $20,000 in debt, and they use the money from their producers or from their companies or from their parents. And so they're kind of indebted to all these people, and then maybe they make it big, and maybe they don't, and so they end up kind of always in a position of weakness almost. And so it's really difficult, I think, to break in. Yeah.
I know a little bit of that myself. If you get on Japanese TV as a comedian or something like that, you're not getting paid. That's foregone conclusion that you're not getting paid for the appearance. We've got the very rare cases until you've built up enough years where they actually want you on the show. It's not like this, okay, well, we'll give you a shot. We'll let you have one of the chairs. We'll give you a folding chair on the side of the...
somewhere on that area over there.
And if you happen to say something interesting, we may include it in the show. But there's people on TV every day. I've seen a number of comedians who are quote-unquote successful, on the train, hey, what's up, the money's not huge. Then you get into commercial endorsements.
Right. I think that's probably where you make a lot of money.
Or a guy Studio Ghibli guy. I'm sure he's doing well. Every little freaking fish puppet thing that gets sold He's getting a little slice through that action.
I really like Miyazaki Hayao because he's able to criticize otaku really, really deeply. At the same time, he does something similar, right?
Yeah.
Ponyo is like a classic example. He uses a shoujo in the center of the story. It's all this kind of...
Wait, you lost me already here, dude. What's a shoujo?
The young girl. So he uses the young girl with this transformation. Ponyo is kind of like, in my opinion, Ponyo is a very kind of archetypal, almost moe type character, really. She's a young girl, she has superpowers, she loves Sosuke, the main boy character, she's all on top of him the whole show, like trying to dominate him and stuff like that. I want you, blah blah blah. And so Miyazaki is creating the shoujo character, then he criticizes otaku for liking the shoujo character. He also criticizes otaku for kind of buying all this merchandise. Why do you like all this stuff? You buy all this merchandise, you're all like big kids or something. And then he sells his Ponyo merchandise. He's like really able to jump on both sides of the fence. I like that about Miyazaki. He's a total jerk, but he gets away with a lot, right?
That's interesting. Oh yeah, I mean he's a golden boy because he wins an academy, and there's nothing Japanese people like more than when a Japanese person wins something in a foreign country. Then like they're elevated to the highest echelon of respect.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter. I remember like this was back during the Winter Olympics. I was sitting in this little Nomiya having beers in my neighborhood, and there's all these like 70-year-old dudes, and we're watching like the women's half pike snowboarding. And they're like, oh, that Melo Amai, she's amazing. She is fantastic. But like, fuck you guys. Like 2 weeks ago, she was a freeder loser who couldn't hold down a real job. Yeah. But now that she's competing for Japan and the honor of Japan, she's like this, golden child of our society, So as soon as like any Japanese person like proves themselves on a world stage, they are immediately, put in this echelon of gods in Japanese society. This is a very simple question, hopefully. What's your favorite manga? What's your favorite anime?
My favorite manga?
Gotta pick one.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I like so many. I'll pick one, really. Let's see. That's my favorite manga. I really liked XL Saga. I mean, for like as a manga, I really liked XL Saga. And let's see what else. I liked Azumanga Daioh, of course. I really liked it. That was a good one. Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind was a great manga, I think.
I think we're up to like 5 now.
I'm sorry. All right. So my favorite. I think I'm going to go with favorite manga of all time. Favorite manga of all time. I think I'm going to stick with XL Saga. I think XL Saga was a great manga. I'm going to go with that. But as far as anime goes, I think it's a show that everybody can agree on. Some people hate it, but I'm a big fan of Evangelion. I do think that the Evangelion was a turning point. It has like all the stuff that was coming up to it, all the narrative kind of stuff, and it had kind of it telegraphed the changes coming in Japanese animation today with kind of like the characters. So I think Evangelion kind of has story and characters. It has the hard edge, the mecha, and the moe, and I really think that Evangelion is a way that kind of was able to. It overcame a whole bunch of barriers that was amazing in my opinion.
Otaku culture, it's in some ways like learning a foreign language. Well, it is learning a foreign language. Technically, it's hard to break into for someone who doesn't know anything about it. What's the starter course? What would you recommend for someone who's like, oh, this is interesting, I'd like to like check something out? What would you like to start with? This, check this out, and then if you like that, maybe you want to move on to other stuff.
So just kind of get an idea what it's all about.
Yeah, what's a good entry point other than buying this lovely book available at Amazon.com and bookstores across the world.
Check that out.
What else would you?
So I think that one of the best ways to kind of get a feel for it is maybe just check it out, right? Just check out some of the stuff. Like watch. I see someone here saying Macross. Yeah, Macross. Check out Macross. Check out Gundam. Check out Yamato. Those are kind of the big three. Check out those three, and if you like it, then maybe you want to go deeper, because it's really kind of those three narratives are kind of a master narratives that get replayed over and over and over again, I think. So check it out, and if you like it, then kind of go a little bit deeper, check out some other things. If you want to kind of get the roots of moe, check out Urusei Yatsura. Urusei Yatsura is kind of like the quintessential. I mean, it's got this harem of girls, right? Each girl has a different personality. You've got the tsundere girl, you've got the cute girl, you've got kind of the dominant, sexy girl there, and so on and so forth. But you just kind of like start checking it out, and if you start with the big series like that, then you can kind of decide, well, which one do I want to go towards? Do I want to go towards Gundam, or do I want to go towards Macross? Do I want to go towards Urusei Yatsura, or do I want to go towards something else? So I think they're really. What's that?
Ever have a book signing?
Yeah, actually, I went to the United States. What was it? I think it was in August to visit my sister, who just had a baby, by the way.
Oh, my God.
Thank you, thank you. So to visit my sister, and I did a whole bunch of book signings on the West Coast. I still haven't been to the East Coast because I don't have the money. I would like to. I really, and I've done a bunch of events here in Japan, but I would like to go around and kind of meet many different people. Unfortunately, because of the publishing schedule in Japan, the book came out in June, right? So we missed all the conventions. We couldn't go to the United States and promote the book because the book wasn't out officially in the United States until October. So it's a really bad timing. I wanted to go to all the fan conventions and kind of like meet people and talk about stuff.
What's your take on the American scene? The American conventions, the American cosplay, manga, and I mean, in Japan, it's Japan. What can you compare and contrast, like the two, like North America, say, and Japan?
The comics?
Yeah.
Or the conventions?
Well, everything. Like,
Oh, okay.
Like, has North America become its own market? Is it its own thing now, or is it still just a place for Japanese artists and stuff to offload their merchandise?
I think it's really difficult right now for Japanese artists to break out in the United States because there's a couple of problems, but like for example, the gaming industry in Japan is really suffering because they're making these really highly polished images instead of making engines. I think the players in the United States want more engines. They want kind of the internet kind of gaming, or they want kind of the online gaming and stuff like that. So they want something that has this huge immersive world with all these different options and like a million different weapons and stuff like that, instead of this kind of arcade culture that's in Japan where the image is perfect, there's no bugs in the game and stuff like that. So what you end up with is like a huge market for Japanese games in Japan, and then these games that very seldom make it outside of Japan. You've also the best example is dating simulator games. So Japan has like a lot of dating simulator games, right? And they follow the same format, right? The engine is really not that advanced. Got really nice pictures, beautiful pictures, right? And it doesn't transfer outside of Japan. The stories are good, the images are good, but the engine is bad, and it's kind of dealing with this it's too simple. It's dealing with this very local kind of fan community, so it doesn't travel. I think it's happening that way a lot with Japanese content, with games, with manga, with anime, especially with this whole moe boom. I think that people in the United States are kind of beginning to kind of say, well, the creativity, the stuff I liked in Japan, which was the sci-fi stuff, right? What we always liked was the sci-fi stuff, that hard edge, like OVA film stuff in the 1980s and 90s. But that kind of thing is, I think, it's not going to happen as much as it did before. We're going to have to kind of deal with a new model where it's more like characters, more based on affect and so on and so forth. Or we might have to kind of just say, well, we'll make our own manga, we'll make our own anime, we'll import from China or Korea. I think Japan, as we remember it in the 1980s, like as this mecca of sci-fi anime and just hard-edged anime, I'm not sure if it's going to continue this way forever. So
yeah, we'll see.
We have to change our expectations, maybe.
Actually, yeah, I worked.
You should start playing Arrowgate. Those are some of the best stories, actually.
I just started. I'll start this about 2-3 months ago. I did the international localization for a Hudson game called Calling. It's a Nintendo Wii game, like where the Wii controller is a cell phone, and you kind of like are in this haunted house, and a large portion of the game is video sequences with dialogue and finding out stories. So it's like half movie, half video game, But I was thinking like, I mean, I'm not a huge gamer, but I was thinking like, yeah, I don't know if I would play this. But I think for a Japanese style audience, I could see it would be something the locals would like. But just simply slapping on English language, like dialogue, it's completely different. It's like for example, like, and I do not get this. This is one of the most ridiculous things ever. But typing of the dead is more popular in Tokyo than like the gun version of like what's it, House of the Dead, or like where you have a gun and you shoot the zombies. Like it's almost impossible to find that. But they have this one like where you type, like a word comes up, and if you type the word fast enough, it kills the zombie. And I was like, really? why would you ever want to play a game where you type to kill zombies?
Because you have to
rather than shoot them with a gun.
You have to prepare for niche
House of the Dead.
So someone comes at you with this, this scathing remark on niche out. So you have to get ready to defend yourself, right? By your fast typing. That's
well, I had my first gun when I was like 15. It was a 22. It was a rifle. It's not like that I Smith & Wesson or something like that. But anyway, it's like they just don't have that culture. They don't have the same amount of innate excitement about holding a gun. That like American red-blooded white dudes like ourselves do.
Hold a gun.
So it's like for us, it's like, yeah, cool, we get to hold a gun, shoot stuff. But for them, it's like, I'd rather type. So there is a sort of innate cultural gap into what they find interesting as opposed to what a Western audience might find interesting.
It seems like that gap is becoming larger, maybe, and it could be because the fans are becoming the creators now. So you've got this generation that was brought up on dating simulators and doujinshi and stuff like that, and they're kind of moving farther away from a mainstream or international demand. And so, like the whole moe controversy, I think is really indicative of that. You've got this group of people who's increasingly talking to themselves instead of kind of talking to a larger audience. And if that's the way, what's this link here?
Opinion on this. If I can pull it up in the sort of screen. Unfortunately, I'm going to end up opening.
Can't do this. Here it is. That's good stuff. Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm looking at. The before and after photo of, is this the same person?
No. It's just generational kind of thing. So the left is Ryoko from Tenchimuyo, and the right is, I'm not even sure. This is something else.
But yeah, you can see like the eyes have gotten huge. The mouth has gotten smaller. I don't know.
In the end, you've got more malicious. Is what happened. You've amped that moe meter. Is what
the moe's gone up. Because actually, the one on the left looked somewhat humanish.
Yeah.
The one on the right is a little bit more fantastical.
Right, and you have to have kind of that I think that fantastical edge to get the moe going on there. So, yeah. So, in response to that image, what I would say is we're going in the right direction. If moe is the goal, we're going in the right direction.
I have this comedy bit about like the future of society is not survival of the fittest, but the survival of the most kawaii. And so the most kawaii Japanese women will pass on their genes, and then like some centuries later, we're just going to have these women with these huge eyes and gigantic eyelids, and they'll have no mouths. They'll just communicate via sort of like hypertext, sort of mental telepathy. And their fingers will disappear. Only their elbows will be usable for carrying bags, and things like that.
There seems to be like some negativity towards the right direction comment there. I gotta tell you though, I believe that if we're looking for a model that works in the anime industry today, right? So we've broken down into these small groups, these small studios who are making like small budget anime shown after midnight, trying to get a small group of fans and get them to get really interested, right? Get them to buy merchandise. How do you do that? You get cute characters, right? I mean, the kind of Ryoko character who appeals to a small group of people doesn't have a merchandising campaign to back her up. I think that what you're seeing right there is you're seeing a character that becomes more universally appealing. It becomes a character people want, right? So I think that in a marketing standpoint or in like a new model standpoint, the character is going in the right direction. That's all I'm saying. As far as like which one do I like better, I'm going to stick with Ryoko. I agree with you there. I'm going to stick with Ryoko. But I think we're going.
It does evolve.
It has to evolve in a certain way to meet the market demands.
Someone asked a question earlier. Do you see any moral problems with the otaku world? I brought up earlier that I feel more and more that Akihabara is becoming like a red light district, little by little. Like with, because it does cater to men. Obviously, other businesses that cater to men have started popping up, and literally in front of Akihabara Station is like a 6-story, like sex shop. There's 2 actually huge sex shops, within 3-minute walks from the Denki Town exit of Akihabara. And I was suggesting that, if you're gonna hold up Akihabara for the Yoko So campaign, they should do what they did with Times Square, which used to be filled with pornography and stuff like that. And you just started including zoning laws saying at least 60% of your merchandise has to be, non like erotic or whatever. You know, I mean, what's your feeling on that? What's the health of Akihabara right now?
I think you're onto something there, because that's what they're doing, in my opinion. They are actually trying to clean it up, and it's not so much by zoning, but what they're doing is the police will go around and like certain stores, they'll ask them certain questions, like, you know, what's going on, or they'll sit in front of their store, they'll harass the customers and stuff like that. So in my impression, I think that probably a lot of the stuff that's considered kind of, how should I say, offensive by foreigners probably will disappear in the next couple of years. Akihabara is becoming this very public stage area.
Yeah.
I mean, when you've got the prime minister going down there making speeches, you don't want to have like lowly characters on his left and right. It's going to send the wrong image, or send the wrong message. So I'm pretty sure that Akihabara, the more it becomes a public space, the less this kind of private stuff will be going on.
Yeah.
So
this is just a general observation, but ever since, I think, you know, the Russo-Japanese War, the Japanese have been incredibly sensitive to what the rest of the world thinks about them. And there's this endless numbers of books and TV shows that discuss what does the rest of the world think about us. Like, they're very sensitive to that. And I remember hearing that, like, before the Olympics were held in Tokyo, like, they passed a law that it was illegal to run a shop where your female staff were not wearing underwear.
yeah.
Because there were all these bars apparently had that mirrored floors, and the staff would walk around with no underwear on. But it was sort of like the Japanese government is like, if we're going to be having all these foreign people coming over here, we got to kind of hide some shit under the carpet,
Right.
Because this is not like, people are not gonna, you know, take on this. And I remember in my neighborhood when I first lived here, there was a little porn vending machine near my house. And like a week or two before the World Cup, it was gone. And I don't think that was coincidence. No. You know, I think every time there's been like a large event held in Japan, they kind of clean up like some of this stuff because they don't want people to see, you know, that stuff.
Right.
You know, but I mean, it exists in every country. Well, probably.
Soiled underwear vending machines do not exist, by the way. They used to. They were zoned out of existence.
Yeah, they no longer exist.
This is an example of that, actually. Yeah. It falls under the antiques law, I believe. So you can't actually sell used stuff from a vending machine. So no.
There's a good book called Pink Samurai, which you should check out if you're interested in this, but it catalogs the entire history of, you know, the laws and whatnot regarding that. It's an interesting book.
So, morality in pop culture.
Morality in pop culture. Because then again, like, I don't know, like, I can think of any number of, well, I mean, not Hannah Montana, I wouldn't do her. But, like, so I just don't, she doesn't do it for me. But, I mean, there's just as much, you know, of similar things in Western pop culture, pop music, you know. Like Britney Spears, pre or post, you know, miniskirt. You know, I don't think it's that different.
But I think there's a difference. So if you're speaking about idols, there's a big difference in the fact that I think Japanese idols and talents are not really selling talent so much. They're selling actually personality. So when you look at a talent on Japanese television, or you look at an idol, they're not selling like my singing talent. They're selling,
no.
They're selling to you a certain personality. You say, well, support me. I'm not perfect yet, but if you just support me and nurture me, I'll become kind of your friend, or I'll become someone that will sing for you. I'll become an idol only for you and stuff like that. So I think they're selling more like raw personality. So in that case, I think there's more kind of this insistence on youth and imperfection and kind of authenticity and personality in idols and so on. And that's why we have kind of this non-ability stuff, and also moe. Yeah, that gives you moe right there, no doubt about it. But.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the majority of Japanese like geinoujin are famous because of the character or brand they've established, not because of any skills they possess. You know, they're selling really an image of a person, you know, to get behind and support.
Which is probably why there's so much negative scandal coverage. If you feel like you know this person, you're close to this person is kind of like your object, then when that person betrays the image, that's why there's such a negative thing. I know this person, and this is not what they're supposed to do, and then, you know, all this negative scandal coverage, which happens like every week, it seems like.
The Akihabara is just kind of it was in the news, and it was fairly, I think it's the biggest event in Akihabara recently. The psychopath who went in the killing spree in Akihabara.
In 2008, right?
Yeah, 2008. Has the town gotten over that? Has it moved on? Like, pretty much?
Well, I think so. There really wasn't even that much of a ceremony on the 1 year anniversary. Some people are still putting flowers out there, but it seems like this kind of just been forgotten, which is, in a way, it's unfortunate, because I think that it did bring to light a lot of problems. Kato Tomohiro was his name, and Kato Tomohiro was not actually an otaku. He came to Akihabara to punish people who were ignoring him. He went online, he wanted people to talk to him, they wouldn't talk to him, so he felt like he was being ignored in the virtual world. He went to Akihabara to kind of get his revenge. But actually, the story of Kato is not the fact that he was ignored online. The story is that he was like a dispatch worker working at a Toyota parts factory in Shizuoka, right? He had not enough money to have a family, to have friends. He couldn't go out. He was disowned by his family because he didn't get on the fast track to the top, right?
Yeah.
So the story of Kato Tomohiro is the story of the failure of Japanese masculinity and the consequences that has on the youth of Japan. So I really wish they would focus on that story and not talk about, like, well, was he an otaku? Was there doujinshi in his room? That's all a red herring. Forget that. The story is how capitalism betrayed this young man. That's the story.
Well, there's an interesting statistic that Japanese men in their 30s are more likely to commit crime than any other group of Japanese men. But they realize they're the guys who graduated university just as the bubble was bursting, and they came out into the world, and like all of their parents had great jobs, and were like, oh, you're just going to graduate, you've done everything you need to do, you've gone to university, now you're getting a job at some company, and then the bubble burst, and they were like working at a sausage factory pulling a lever, and they're like, wait, what happened to my like, you know, cushy job at Sony and going out to, you know, hostess bars every night?
Where did that go?
They became very embittered towards society, and it's like that, like, generation, that group of men has a lot of like still issues they're dealing with. And it could happen again with this most recent recession, but it was a lack of opportunities that they saw as like a birthright, that they just thought it was expected, having seen like the 80s. You know?
Yeah. The expectations, I think, had grown so large. It's really an unfortunate thing, and I think that otaku probably, again talking about the connections between otaku and mainstream society, I think that they realized this first. In the 1970s, like already the otaku guys were saying, well, society kind of sucks, right? So let's kind of deal with the occult. Let's deal with kaiju. Let's talk about, you know, like space, and let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the past. Let's not talk about the present. Anything but the present, right? They kind of escaped into this fantasy world. In the 1980s, it becomes kind of tied to consumer culture, and then bam, you've got a cultural movement going on. But actually, I think, like you're saying, right now, after the bubble burst, I think a lot of people are feeling like, what happened? Society kind of betrayed us, and they're looking for something new, which might be the reason why we have all this new kind of interest in like hobbies and new pop culture, new niches popping up all over the world.
Yeah. Also, I was going to ask, of like the maid cafes and stuff like that, what's the failure rate of those businesses, do you think?
Maid cafes have kind of reached the end of their rope, unfortunately. I love maid cafes, so unfortunately for me, probably for some of you it might not be unfortunate, but the maid cafe.
Like I can't. Other than filming, I don't think I've ever been to a maid cafe. But
I mean, there was a time when there was like 49 or so maid cafes in Akihabara. And
49.
It's only 300 meters by 300 by 500 meters, Akihabara. So it's not a big place, and you've got like almost 50 cafes or places with maids in them in that area. So it's a huge thing, right? But I think now there's like so little demand. You've got like basically tourists coming. Sometimes you've got the regular customers or regulars, but the otaku have already abandoned it, and most of the mainstream tourists have already abandoned it. So you've got kind of just.
Why have they abandoned it?
The otaku, I think, because it wasn't actually supposed to be the way it is right now. The first maid cafes were like in 2000, about 1998 to 2001, and that was basically like small cafes. There were rest spaces for otaku after they were shopping for dating sims and doujinshi. So they would shop for this stuff, they would go to the cafe, they would sit down, and they would kind of just relax. And it was about kind of pretending that you weren't in a public space. This wasn't a real person serving you, it was a character. And the other person was like sharing your hobby, the other person at the next table, so you don't have to be like embarrassed or anything like that. So it was kind of like a private basement space.
Yeah.
But slowly, starting about 2003, these places started to appear on television. And that's when you get like writing and catch-up on there. That's when you get like personality maids who have like their names on their uniforms and stuff like that. And this becomes kind of like a big thing after Densho Otaku in 2005. And that's when there's this huge spike. Actually, before 2005, I think there was 4 maid cafes in 2004, and there was about 60 or something after Densho Otaku in 2006. So we're talking about this huge bubble in maid cafes, and this is all based on mediation. So I think at that time, the otaku said, well, this isn't a place for us at all. And so they left. Then what was left was kind of the tourists and the regulars. Now the tourists are kind of dying off slowly, and so you're ending up with just this group of regulars who goes again and again and again the same
places.
So I think the new cafes are having a really hard time to capture regulars. So they're dealing with kind of like these weird costumes or weird services or bizarre kind of themes to kind of draw in tourists and the media.
So like actually pushing the envelope further is an attempt to see like how bizarre can we make it to get people's attention.
Shokotan. I kind of like Shokotan actually. I know she's not very popular anymore, but I mean because she's become too mainstream and she's like a poser or whatever. But actually, I think Shokotan does her best to kind of put a bright or like a nice bright image of otaku forward. And I think whether or not it's really interesting that she's the mouthpiece of otaku because Nakagawa Shoko is an idol and she's a woman. So the fact that she's like the image of otaku is really misleading, of course. And I agree with that. But I think that she's kind of doing her best to, in her own way, support the hobbies that she likes. And I think that she's doing her thing, right? You can't blame her. She's an idol. So
it's funny. I swear I saw Kevin in H&M yesterday in Shibuya. It was me.
Really? You were there?
But it's like, well, why don't these people say hello? It's always like afterwards there's this creep message. I saw you. You were shopping for hats.
I remember that hat. Right?
Hello, Tommy.
I thought you hated Harajuku. Why were you down there?
Shibuya.
Oh, sorry, Shibuya.
Shibuya H&M.
There's an H&M in Shibuya?
Oh, yeah,
man.
man.
Right, that's up the hill, right?
Yeah, over by Okamura.
Yeah. Which I don't shop for clothes ever. But this is kind of like the extent of my fashion right here. It's hard to be a man. That's the extent
right,
of my...
Final judgment on foreign guys wearing shirts with kanji.
You
have one.
Right there.
You have one.
Man.
You have one, but come on. Do Japanese people laugh at you?
They laugh because I'm doing this knowing that there's a discourse against foreign men wearing these shirts. So
you're doing it like ironically.
I know I shouldn't be wearing this shirt, but this shirt says it's hard to be a man, right? And I think that's, for me, this is a message that Japanese people share. So when they look at this shirt, they say, yeah, you're damn right. Well, we have a camaraderie going on there. So
I have to say this. I was watching Kill Bill, Part 2, I think it was, in a Japanese theater. And Uma Thurman walks into the sushi shop, and everybody in the audience starts laughing. And I'm like, what the fuck are these people laughing about? I asked the Japanese person, like, what's so funny? And she's like, she's wearing a T-shirt that says Okinawa in kanji on it. And like, so it's like what gaijin wears a shirt with the kanji of Okinawa when they're visiting Okinawa? I'm like, that's a tourist shirt. It's the shirt you buy when you're a tourist.
I even after having defended it, I have to agree that like I don't want to be the guy wearing the shirt of the band to the band's performance. I agree. You don't want to be that guy. I agree with that.
He's I guess like technically he's a friend. This other guy on YouTube named Tikyo Sam, and he always wears this like. I'm looking for a Japanese girlfriend shirt.
Don't.
I know.
Not that one. Not that one.
I wanted to like sit him down and have an intervention and be like, Sam, don't wear that shirt. Just not any other shirt's okay, but not that.
I think if it was ironic, like if, for example, you weren't, if you're like, well, actually, I'm gay, then it would be good. Then it was a fucking funny shirt.
As long as there's some amount of irony involved in it, then it's fine. But there's a certain amount of discomfort I have when guys wear. That shirt, specifically that shirt, and it's funny. The thing is, I've seen that shirt, like, oh, that's funny. I want to buy this, but then I go, wait, no, I'm not going to buy this, and I put it back down.
Kanji shirts, yeah.
Some people treat being an otaku as a fad. Is otaku the whole concept? I mean, will you be out of business in 10 years?
I don't consider myself to be a businessman, so I never make any money, by the way. So I'm not a businessman. I never make a dollar.
Really, I just got a gold laminated toilet with all my YouTube money.
There you go. You're a rich man, right?
But I mean, do you think there is an endpoint for all of this?
I don't think that there's. I think that the endpoint is when otaku becomes such a mainstream thing that you no longer have to identify as an otaku. You say, well, I like media, and I have this kind of intimate relationship with media and technology. All right, well, we all do, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the fact that we no longer call ourselves cyborgs, right? We all have cell phones, right? We depend on cell phones, so it's kind of cliche to call yourself a cyborg. I'm a cyborg. So, of course, I'm talking about the academic circles. There was this time when it was like really it was like chic to call yourself like we're cyborgs, we're a new kind of humanity. And I think that otaku in a way is similar. I mean, the fact that it's kind of a word that you call yourself to identify as a certain kind of person. But I think that a lot of us already are that person, so we don't have to identify that way anymore. But at the same time, as kind of a counterpoint to that, there's always going to be someone who's deeper and like more intense about these things, right? And that person is always going to be identified as different.
Yeah.
Maybe the word will change, but there's always going to be somebody who's like too deep, too intense, and we call him like he's been at it for too long, and we say, so this guy's an otaku, right?
Yeah.
So I think that as a concept of like an intense, deeply devoted fan, it will remain, right?
Yeah. I mean, and the media itself will continue and evolve, in whatever ways. I've been watching this American drama called Rescue Me recently. Great show. Dennis Leary, who I love, is the lead. But like almost every episode, he's wearing a T-shirt that says Ireland on it. And it's sort of like, we know. So we got that part. But it's like I had, like when I was a kid growing up, I had like at least 2 or 3 T-shirts. I had a Guinness T-shirt, an Ireland T-shirt, sweaters, green sweaters that said Ireland on it.
It's kind of cool to be.
But it was like that was a specific thing, like where I was identifying myself as, this is what I am, So it works across all,
My brother still wears his Ireland shirt, actually. I mean, even though we're Scottish and we've never actually been to Ireland. He thinks that the Irish are kind of like the fightingest people in the world, so they're kind of cool, right?
Yeah, he identifies with them. Exactly. Did you ever wear a visor cap? Is that true?
No, it's directed to you. I do no visor cap. No,
I've never worn a visor cap. TQ Sam wears a visor cap, I should point out. Fanny pack? No, that's absolutely wrong.
I wear a fanny pack. Yeah. No, it's not a question. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned that. But yes,
it's a tough question, but this is very fair. Shuriken Atlas, lovely videos, by the way. Check out his videos on YouTube if you haven't. It's a slightly more bitter version of Tokyo. But why do idols like Morning Musume fill arenas with like 40, 50-something-year-old men? And is that not a little bit creepy?
Okay. Well, I think that looking at it from an outside standpoint, it might seem a little bit creepy. But actually, I think that there's a basic psychological need that's fulfilled by idols. So if you've got people who are increasingly alienated from others and alienated from the fact like they don't have children, they don't have wives or whatever, or they kind of like they have a need to care or a need to kind of engage.
Yeah.
That's what idols do, right? And actually, you've got kind of this nurturing kind of sexuality there, where you go in there and you're supporting the idol. She's also supporting you, so it's very mutual. And actually, I think that what idols is all about is, and the reason why idols are increasing around the world, I think, is we want this kind of youth and innocence, and this kind of this support and this kind of purity that the idols represent. So for me, idols aren't that strange. And actually, I go to idol performances myself, and the guys, if you just talk to them, they maybe look greasy, but they're the nicest guys in the world, actually. They're really very, very nice people.
But they are spanking off to a photo of the idol, more than likely.
Well, I think that for some guys, there might be that kind of a desire as well. But I think the Morning Musume girls, are they hot enough to masturbate? Would anybody actually, to me, they look like kind of,
One time I was recording at NHK, and we were in the studio next to a studio where they were filming something, and so they were all like hanging out outside, and so I decided to go, read a book in the lounge area.
Okay, yeah. Conveniently find a reason.
But that's always part of it. But yeah, I think there is, and that's often misunderstood. There is a much deeper level to it, and I think it is that lack of connection. I can give a great example going in reverse. I remember when I was in university and Princess Diana died. I walked into the lounge at my university, and then all these like girls sitting around like weeping, like literally fucking weeping. And I'm like, oh my god, what happened? And they're like, Diana was died in a car accident. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what are you somehow related to Princess Diana? Have you met Princess Diana?
Did you feel like
and you're American? It's not even the thing. There's absolutely no connection whatsoever between you and Princess Diana. But they had this psychological link because they had grown up, with this relationship with her.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of ridiculous to me. Same year, some dude threw himself out a window of my floor of the dorm room.
Nobody remembers that.
7th floor. Didn't end well for him. There was no crying session in the in the lounge there. Nobody was like sitting around being, oh my god, I can't believe that guy who lived next door to me threw himself out the window. Right. Shit.
And what's interesting about that, right, is the fact that somebody who lives next door, we don't know him, we don't care. But at the same time, that Princess Diana, because we watched her from afar for all these years, we care. This is called scopophilia, friends. This is like when you're watching somebody from afar and you fall in love with them. Vertigo. The great Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Yeah.
So you fall in love with somebody because you see them every day, and you kind of like don't have a relationship, and there's this distance that keeps them pure. So back to the same point, this is a basic psychological kind of thing going on here. Princess Diana is more important to us than the person next door in our dorm who committed suicide. So I mean, I think that really it seems like a stalker or idol thing to do. Like you're walking around, Vertigo is like super stalker movie, right?
Actually, I don't know why it's not been made yet. But like a Japanese remake of Vertigo using a hikikomori, spying on like the 16-year-old girl who lives next door or something like that.
That actually would be really interesting.
That'd be a great film.
It would be a great film.
Somebody out there write it.
And by the way, about the idol thing, I'm just going to run one more thing out here. So it's not just greasy guys who like idols, right? What about Johnnies, right? I think the average
yes. Like the idol market is by no means dominated by men. Like Johnnies is a huge thing.
For sure, and I think each week actually, the average Japanese sees one person from Johnny's, from SMAP, just one band at least twice. So this is a huge thing. And also, let's talk about the Korean wave right here, because I mean, like, I think that this is actually, for me, stranger.
Johnny's is a talent agency that specializes in young boy bands, like Backstreet Boys, that type of shit. Well, I mean, there's a lot I can say about Johnny's, but basically, it's the male equivalent of like the female idols, like Morning Musume.
Right. But I mean, they're also increasingly getting younger, by the way, Hey Say Jump and stuff like that. But so that's one thing. But also the Korean wave. So you've got these young, good-looking boys from Korea. They're coming to Japan. They're really popular. So I went to this one event for one of these Korean stars, and he went on stage. And I'm not even kidding. He sat down. He read a book in Korean. He read a book. And there's like the entire dome is filled with people, about 20,000 people, and they're weeping, they're crying, they're like, oh, his voice is so beautiful, and I'm in love with him. You don't know what he's saying, right? There's no translation. You have no idea what this man is saying to you. He's just kind of speaking in his, suave Korean. So, I mean, what I want to say, right, is like, he's beautiful. Yeah, I agree with you. He's beautiful. That's a nice comment. But at the same time, I mean, the fact that he's not there, he's not actually a person to you. He's kind of like the cute Korean boy who's kind of on stage speaking language you don't understand. That kind of creates a distance where you can kind of play with desire right there. So I think that women, men, old, and the fans of Korean stars are typically older women too. So what I'm saying is that the desire for idols cuts across generations, it cuts across sex and gender.
Yeah.
There's a basic desire for idols. Johnny Depp, you're damn right. But there's a huge desire for idols, I think, around the world right now. So there has to be something more going on to it than a bunch of gross old guys who like young girls. There's something more going on here.
I mean, there is that, but yeah, it's not solely that. And like I'm sure a number of like adult male parents have been walking through the house and found their daughter's like Shakira CD and stopped to browse through the liner notes a little bit too long. I mean, it's not a Japanese thing solely.
What's the answer? Do you think the curious type
texting my Facebook yesterday? I was wondering. Oh yeah, any questions about the Maid Cafe episode?
What acceptable for girls?
For girls, yeah,
Sure.
absolutely, yeah. Actually, at the when we were filming at the Tranny Maid Cafe, there was a group of office workers who came in all together from the same office. It was about half men, half women at the table, and they were just they were just there having a drink and talking at just a kind of quirky place. There was no like I don't think they were like Joe Sama like regulars. They were just like, hey, let's go out for a drink. Where do you want to go? Did you hear about that?
Some new interesting place.
That Tranny Maid? Yeah, let's check that out. You know.
But also, these are about 2007 numbers, a little bit old, but the average breakdown of people going to maid cafes is about 60% male and about 40% female. So it's a large tourist attraction these days, and so you're going to find a lot of women going to maid cafes. You don't have to worry about like, is it okay for a woman to go there? There's plenty of women going to maid cafes. So.
Also, there's also specifically for women like butler cafes now, where it's like cute young men in like tuxedo suits and bow ties, serving coffee to ladies. There's far fewer of those. And actually in Ikebukuro by Otome Road, there's one that's like, it's women dressed as men, serving almost like only women. I've been there 2 or 3 times to bring, like, when guests come to visit, I try to bring them to the most fucked up place I can think of.
The Cafe?
Yeah. I forget what it's I think it's called the Garçon Cafe. No, not
no, you're talking about the danso, so the female, like the male disguise, so the girls dress up like beautiful boys, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. There's plenty of those, for sure.
So I always bring, like, try to bring, like, people who visit to, like, a bizarre place. And every time I've been in there, I'm the only dude in there. It's all women. It's all women in there, which is interesting. Yeah, there's actually a maid cafe in LA. Tokyo. I don't know much about it. I saw Ken Tanaka made a video about it. That's all I know. Do you have a YouTube account, by the way?
YouTube account. I think actually our website, otaku2.com, has a YouTube channel, but actually we don't have a camera, so we don't put up stuff very often. Like some stuff from Akihabara and so on and so forth.
We'll make sure we put up how to find you on the web. And
thanks.
All stuff like that in the last video, because that's the one that people will watch the most.
Who's your favorite eroge? Too Hard. I like Too Hard.
Any other questions? And also, if there's any other questions non-otaku related, we're open to that as well. Although, I mean, since you are an expert.
No, Ethan, this is some great. Like, I never thought about what food I miss. I miss Spam, actually. The Spam is cheap, right? Especially in Montana, we eat Spam a lot. We like Spam, but in Tokyo, Spam is like super expensive.
It's high end.
This is high end food going on here. So I mean, I can't. And also jerky, man. I miss jerky because I mean, I used to buy like these huge like pound sacks of like World Heritage jerky. Yeah. And then like now I have to buy like these small little things you buy with beer, and they're like little, you can tear it open, there's a tiny little sliver of beef in there. I hate that. I hate the small jerky sizes. And then one more thing, turkey. I wish I could have some turkey, but I can't have any turkey, which really, that makes me upset because we just had Thanksgiving, I didn't have any turkey. So those are the 3 things I'm missing. I want Spam,
Pig Cow,
turkey, and turkey.
Harajuku had a Thanksgiving dinner. Should have been there.
I should have been there.
And Niku no Hanamasa?
Yeah.
Sometimes they stock turkeys. But do you have an oven?
I don't have, that's another problem. I don't have a freaking oven. So I wish I had a big enough apartment to have an oven.
I know. The one year I bought a turkey, I had to cut that up into pieces and roast it like piece by piece. That's sad.
That's good though. Maybe in the little fish thing, just cut a slice and just put it in the fish cooker there.
No, you're right. Like jerky, stuff like that. I used to, when I first got here, I was teaching English, and I got this big thick catalog from a hunting mail order shop, and I used to show it to my students to freak them out because the catalog would have like camouflage bed sheets. I don't know why you would want that. They had bone saws for cutting up like deer carcasses in the field. They had like jerky dryers, so like once you get like the venison, you can like hang dry it in this like jerky maker in your house.
Now speaking my language.
You know, they had like everything. They even had like mini fake gun sets for like ages 5 to 10, and like little fake deer you could set up, and they could shoot like little Nerf pellets at the deer. and you could order via mail, like not very powerful guns, but like single shot 22s and stuff like that for about $100. So that Ichiman for a rifle, and that would just like blow Japanese people like, wait, you can mail order a rifle?
Like, for sure.
It's like, yeah, why not? You mail order the rifle, you get your jerky maker, you're in business.
I'm more interested in the jerky maker than that. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's like they could not possibly conceive of this, of this lifestyle, and that's in many ways real America.
Yeah, for sure.
Quote unquote, as they call it, the red states, the real America.
The heartland.
We did not do a lot of jerky making in Long Island. I can tell you that much.
We have a jerky maker, actually. By the way, back in my house, we do have a jerky maker.
That's awesome. Wow, that's an interesting question. What was the process of getting a publisher to sell the book? How did that work? Was it difficult, or were they like, oh, cool, this will sell?
Well,
did you write the book and shop it around? Did you go to them with the idea, and then they said, okay, write it?
I think most people actually will do a treatment. So they'll have like a 20-page thing where they talk about like what I want to do, and this is the page number, and this is who I'm going to sell it to, and stuff like that. And then they take it to the publisher and they sell it, and they do it, that kind of thing. And I was doing something similar. I was actually putting together a treatment on a different book, and the book was about Moe culture and stuff like that. But actually this book did not come from that proposal. I wrote a story about the dolls boom in Japan, and it was
God, that's a whole other world.
It was like maybe a 5-page feature story about the booming candy girls, like the large sex dolls, and then also the super dolphies that Volk sells. So I was talking about the booming in these two industries. And the publisher at Kodansha International just the editor happened to be interested in dolls. So he came to me and he said, well, I want a book on dolls. And I said, hell no, I'm not writing a book on dolls. I'm not going to spend the next year, talking about only dolls and being known as the guy who wrote a book on dolls. So I said, actually, what I have here is I have like all my field notes from Akihabara and all this stuff I've been working on. And I can show this to you. And I showed him about 600 pages of notes, like words, people, it's stuff that I was picking up down in Akihabara. He said, well, this is actually pretty much done. What we have to do is we have to shave this down and then kind of make it a little bit more like accessible for an audience. And so actually it was kind of like from there, it was like a back and forth kind of thing, but really it was just lucky, I guess, going back to the idea of luck. Because I had in my hand the field notes I was taking from the university, and I was writing these stories as kind of like a hobby. So the story got his interest, and my research at school kind of was able to seal the deal. So really, it was just kind of a happy coincidence, really. I didn't actually sell the book to him; he bought it from me, really. So.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's awesome. Akane, careful with the banning thing there. Bonzi's been a long-time viewer because my bouncer is a little crazy in the head, and so he sometimes just boots people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So something got booted? Wow.
He didn't. See, now he denies it. But it's good to have like a bouncer that's a little bit crazy.
What do you think?
Keeps people in line.
Yeah, there's a fear going on there. I love Shinkai Makoto, by the way. I think he's one of the next generation of creators. I think Shinkai, Hosokawa, and Kon Satoshi. These three are going to be like the ones we remember in a couple of years. Another one to keep your eye on is Kamiyama, the guy who did Ghost in the Shell TV series. I think these 4 creators are really going to become big in the next couple of years. Right now we're talking about no creativity. There's no creativity in animation manga. What are you talking about? Like you said, Shinkai Makoto is huge, right? Satoshi Kon is great. So I think that, and also Hosokawa, the guy who did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I mean, there's all this great stuff coming out, so we just have to kind of look for the next generation of creators. Not all of it is Moe, right?
Oh, sorry, Bonzi 29 is still here. Never mind. Say that, that's okay, Connie. I just know that you're a little bit psycho and stuff. Actually, this is a question I have just for my own interest. Newspapers have fallen basically to hell. A lot of print is dying. I mean, now, like selling a book, like this wonderful book right here, you can get on Amazon.com or English booksellers all across the world. It's getting harder and harder, for print stuff to make it. Somebody mentioned that there's already probably, like what? Anyway, like the print world is fading. Does that spell any kind of doom for manga, or is manga impervious will it be because actually now the number one newspaper in the world in terms of circulation is the Daily Yomiuri.
Yeah.
It's the most circulated newspaper in the world because Japanese people still basically buy newspapers. Do you think it's somewhat in a bubble? Is it protected, or is it going to evolve into more online? I've been seeing cell phone manga.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see the future and the economic model going to be like?
Yeah.
Well, don't answer. Let me start a new video.
Okay.
Because you have 45 seconds to explain the answer, and I don't think you can. So, what's the economic outlook for published print textbooks?
I think that there's going to have to be a new way to deal with it, because I think that actually we think about like fast information as the way to do things, but I think that really that's a different kind of media.
Yeah.
So like so I think online stuff. I mean, I work online myself on my website and stuff like that. I love it because the information is so fast, right? You can really access stuff really quickly. But I think that comparing online stuff to a newspaper is difficult, and also comparing newspapers to books is difficult. It's different kinds of amount of time and research and editing that goes into that process.
Yeah.
So they're different mediums. Like the same thing is probably true for doujinshi and manga, for example. There's different levels, so you can compare them if you like, but they both exist side by side. So for me, I think that the print industry will continue because there's a need to have the physical and also the really kind of edited product, the final product, the really polished product is necessary. But as far as like the digital moving into the publishing industries, yeah, for sure. I mean, like the cell phone manga, I think is just like a small thing. The only reason why there's not online manga right now is because the Japanese publishers like Kodansha, for example, don't want to do that. They're like, we want to keep our publishing, grasp on the market, so we don't want to have this online stuff, which is another reason why the TV studios have all this stuff going out. They won't let their stars go online because they don't want to have like YouTube stuff showing all these Japanese dramas. So they end up kind of keeping their control of it.
As PS asks, Kindle has been released in Japan just recently, right? It's just come out, and it's not really doing well.
No, and so that's a case in point, right? Because what's happening? This is actually from the guy who does the marketing for Amazon Japan. So he came into the talk at my university, and what he said, the reason why it's not doing well is because the Japanese publishers refuse to give him content. They're like, well, let's see. We could give you stuff to put onto Kindle, or we could sell it ourselves. I'm going to sell it myself.
Exactly.
So there's a real resistance, I think, to these new kinds of distribution, and also to kind of including.
I think Kindle is best for if you're into classics. If you like reading classics, then buy a Kindle. But actually, I mean, I went to the Newhouse School of Communications, fairly prestigious, journalism school. And my first class was the dean of the school, and I'll never forget, one of the first classes, he says in this announcement, he said, newspapers will never die, because at the end of the day, every man going to work in the morning loves the feeling of that paper in his fingers. We're on the verge of a lot of, this is 1996, he said this. He's like, technology will change, blah, 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 but essentially people love paper and books and the tactile nature of it. And I think he would have been right if instead he just included the word Japanese. Because everyone in America is now getting, I get my news, I still buy a newspaper almost every day, but I get most of my news on my cell phone. But Japanese people still do, they've been resisting the urge to dump. And I don't know if it's because of long commute times. It could be other factors. But yeah, this city really is still a book buying city.
But another thing to remember about newspapers is about 90% of all the sales are by subscription. So they don't really sell stuff based on that kind of thing. It's really, it's coming to your house every morning. Maybe you read it, maybe you don't, but it's kind of like something that everybody has their own newspaper.
Also, I should point out, Packard 75 has put a link to the episode that Patrick and I appear in on Tokyo Eye. If anyone wants to see the episode about...
You can put that online? I thought that we weren't supposed to...
We're not supposed to. I didn't do it.
Okay.
But he did. And although you're essentially putting me out of a job, if you do want to see it, he's put it online.
God, I love the digital revolution.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing. I'm conflicted because, like, at one point, this basically loses me money. But it's also good that people get the information. I'm happy to share it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I feel probably the same way like musicians feel about music. Like, you're so excited that people are listening to your songs. But it would be nice if in a perfect world they were also paying for it. You know? It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
He's one of those writers that keeps his face in public. Have you seen me photo of him? Yes, I have actually, but no, they won't let you do that. So I saw the stuff from him at Kodansha, but what they said is if you publish this or take a picture or even talk about him, you're in trouble. So he's actually militantly controls his image. So no, I can't share those kinds of images. But yes.
Wow. Huh, that's interesting. Wow, running out of time. I got about 5 minutes maybe. I'm gonna wrap this up.
Okay.
Unless do you have stuff to do?
Oh well, it's just kind of raining, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but
Wow, are you homeless?
I'm homeless. Yeah, I have like a tent.
I have a thing at like 3-ish, but I could just not go.
At 3? Oh yeah. Oh wow, you're gonna have to go, right?
Well, I mean, I could. I don't have to go though. I'm kind of in favor of skipping it.
What's this?
Fuck it. I mean, if you want to hang out tomorrow.
It's okay. We can do whatever you want to do. It's fine.
All right, we'll chill a little. Screw it. It's a meeting I'm not getting paid for anyway.
Okay.
So I just have to send a little message and cancel. But that means the onus is on you people to ask more and more interesting questions. Not about Kenji. I have a goldfish named Kenji.
Oh, okay.
And they all like Kenji more than me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Are you guys gay? In the 1920s sense, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm gay as a fox.
Oh, internet. That's the one thing like that I will like mourn the death of print. Is there a certain death of intellectuality? That goes with it.
Like it could be, right? 'Cause I think that things are coming faster, and they have to kind of have more like the tabloidization of news is one thing, right? You have to have more pictures, shorter stories, and stuff like that. And I think that in a way it does kind of preclude the possibility of serious debate and serious discussion. So.
And for me, I mean, honestly, the graphics in this book, I mean, definitely, I think help the overall text.
Speaking of tabloidization, I'm guilty. I'm guilty as anybody. I admit that. All right.
Because I do think that, like, it helps you visualize certain difficult to express concepts.
Yeah. You want to talk about Chacoero, you just show someone in clothes who looks hot. That's the way to do it.
Awesome.
Are you jabbing? Jabbing, jab.
Yeah, the cafe's getting a little busier. I guess it picks up around 3. So actually, this building is a concert hall. It's a big, they have art galleries and stuff in here, things like that. So probably it's only busy before things start or after things start. So
I see.
if there's like a matinee or something. Have you ever made your own dojinshi?
I did, yeah. Actually, this year also we're going to do another one. Some of the people from Otaku 2 have done dojinshi before, like the Megazone 2-3 dojinshi that came out last year. I have a friend who did that. John Hathaway, who I mentioned earlier, he does the art for our site. He's also dojinshi. And the tour brochure we do also is a dojinshi. It's self-published, and we do also make that available at some of the smaller conventions.
Yeah, that's actually something I'd like to do. Do you ever cringe watching a drama based on manga? It seems like almost every TV drama that comes out nowadays
These days, yeah,
is based on a manga originally, which to me says that all the talented writers are not going into TV, they're going into manga.
Yeah.
And now like TV has become like just a secondary, platform for storylines that come out of manga.
I think that's one reason why manga will never die. It's like a central position. A lot of manga is, anime is based on it, a lot of TV, a lot of film. I mean, it's like it's such a central creative space in Japan. So manga will never, if it dies, then I think the entire creative sphere will collapse. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess it's like, you know, in every society, whatever the most prominent art form is in that society, that's where artists are drawn towards. Mm-hmm. You know, it's people like artists, I guess, are not born a writer or a painter. It's just they, at some point, find some medium they're attracted to and get into it. And like in Japan, the most popular one, like when you're growing up, you're watching all this anime and manga, you're like, hey, I want to do that. So it kind of like, there's a whole, all the talent is pooled there, perhaps, not in TV writing. TV writing sucks in Japan.
I think they're making shows on incredibly low budget.
Yes,
for like these dramas and stuff like that. Considering how little money they're putting into it, they make some interesting products.
Japanese dramas have built like, you know, crazy low budgets. Like the typical Japanese drama is about the price of the catering, probably on Prison Break. You know, in terms of cost, like Prison Break or Lost spends more on catering services than the entire budget of many Japanese dramas. It's amazing. All right, I'm gonna go to the little bathroom, and I'm gonna leave you alone with Patrick for a second.
Okay.
Don't say anything crazy.
Some bad stuff about you.
Phone call.
Yeah, I watched Akihabara D. It was good. Actually, the movie was pretty good, right? Tokyo Sonata. No, I don't know that one. I am going to steal the laptop, actually. You read my mind, actually. I don't have a nice Mac like this. My Mac is like this busted old thing. I bought it in 2004. It's like this G4. It's all sticky and stuff, actually. It's like falling apart. And the only reason why it's not falling apart completely is because it's so dirty, right? It won't fall apart. So my Mac is like, you know, it's about 3 times the size of this, too. It's like a heavy brick, like a big freaking tank of a computer. I might steal this thing to... Yeah, the Patrick Show. No, I don't think so. I doubt that. What's that? It doesn't say anything about your tattoos in the wind. Oh, my tattoos. No, actually, I was kind of surprised, actually. There was no comments about it. It was fine. So I've been kicked out of a lot of places for having my anime tattoos. But NHK was cool about it. That's great. That's nice. The difference between anthropology and sociology. Anthropology deals with stories, with people, and sociology deals with concepts or structures. That's the difference. So sociology likes to consider itself to be a science, and anthropology likes to consider itself to be a discipline. If you're dealing with narratives and stories, then you're an anthropologist. If you're dealing with structures and systems, then you're a sociologist. That's the difference. Japanese are actually good. You know, I'm gonna kind of any Japanese dramas that are actually kind of good. What about Hanayori Dango? Am I the only one who likes that? I didn't think it was that bad, and it was okay. It's based on a shoujo manga, but I kind of was getting into it. The Korean one was better. Yes, it was better, but you know, Korean, Japanese, it's a drama. It's on TV. I'll watch it. So what are we doing here? Do I refer to Jungian Freudian psychology in the book? No, actually, all of the psychological concepts. So when I was writing the book, actually, they told me all academic concepts must be removed from the book. They said that it would be too much for readers. I think that they should respect the readers more, but they were like, remove all academic references. They also said remove all references to other books. Yeah, so it's kind of like you have to really enclose this thing and make it into, you know, like very poppy, very short sentences and stuff like that. So there's no Jungian psychological analysis in the book, unfortunately. Great book. It was way too heady. Long tail theory. You know, I don't know if you ever read the book. A long tail theory? No, not read that one.
Basically, the guy's theory is that like Amazon.com makes more money on like if high sales of a single product, and then it slowly goes down, tapers down to lower and lower and lower, smaller amounts of sales to unique things. So for example, Coca-Cola is on the left side of the graph, where they have like one product and they sell a shit ton of it. They advertise the hell out of it. But then on the long tail, there's smaller things like, say, for example, your book, which have like far fewer in terms of total numbers of products sold compared to Coca-Cola. But it's there's a niche audience for it. But like Amazon, for example, or a place like that, makes more money on the long tail, the long, slow, all that like, small volume stuff for niche audiences altogether is far more valuable than huge things like Coca-Cola or Levi Jeans, things like that. So that the internet has kind of changed advertising and economics and things like that, whereas instead of trying to dumb it down towards everybody, so that it's content that everybody could possibly like, it's more economically sensible to make stuff that a minority of people will get, but they will love, and they will all go out and get that thing. And sure, as a sum total, a large distribution company like Amazon will make more money off tons of those things like than a few large companies that sell major world brand products.
True enough.
So yeah, I don't know how much it's like when you dumb down stuff like for the mainstream. It's still the tendency. All the companies want like the mainstream to
want to support the mainstream.
But I mean, hell, it wouldn't like a New York Times bestseller. But the thing is, like it seems to be like the actual economic system is moving away from that.
Yeah, for sure. Like moving away from the mass thing to a more kind of consumer demand model, for sure.
Yeah.
More from the production to the consumption side. When does Kevin's book on Tokyo come out? When does that come out?
Do you know what? Writing a book sucks. It takes a long ass time.
It does take a lot of time.
And you gotta like sit at a computer and type
all through the night, watching anime.
That's a pain in the ass. That's a huge pain in the ass. That's why I'd rather do stand-up. I just need a couple hours at a coffee shop. I'm good to go. Yeah, when I start my sabbatical, I'm taking a sabbatical to work on something.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not sure what yet.
That's something, right?
Get
something done. Go down there, to Bali or something.
Yeah, I want like a I don't know, Kenji: The Life Story by Kevin Cooney.
It was a picture book with like art from Japan. It would work. It would work. The story of Kenji.
It's a little bit too far down the long tail, though. There's like 5 people who would buy that. But it's like, it's like the internet has done such an amazing job of like gathering like small numbers of people who live, like the diaspora of people interested in one thing can now compare notes so easily on the internet that it's like it's epic changing compared to like say went back 50 years ago. Like if there were people everywhere interested in this one thing, they would never know that anyone else out there had a similar interest because there was just no way of finding out about it. But now the internet serves like this linchpin to bring together interest, on a certain subject.
My face is not huge, it's fat. There's a difference. Not huge.
But that's good. Fat. That's good. You're supposed to have a big head to be on TV.
I have a giant head.
Yeah, and actually, they've done studies that the majority of presidents that won the election had larger heads than the person they were running against.
Oh, really?
Like it's like 70-80% of the time, whichever candidate has the larger sized head wins the election, which is strange. Which is a little bit strange statistically.
That is true. It's because Kevin's skinny and I'm fat. That's the difference.
I am skinny.
That is the difference.
I got a question for you. I only got to record this one just because I don't want either of us getting death threats. There's a term, Narutard. Like, I think to discuss like 13, 14-year-olds like really huge into Naruto. And I get emails from these people constantly saying like, I'm 14, I'm planning on moving to Japan next year. Can you give me any advice on how I can do that? And I guess they're going to try and go for a refugee status visa because they're teased at junior high school for like wearing their Naruto gear.
The headband. The headband's big. Wear the headband.
Like for people who are actually thinking adults in the otaku scene, I guess they call it. What's your take on like 13, 14-year-olds who are like not Japanophiles? I think the term is weeaboo. Do you know the term weeaboo?
Yes, I know weeaboo.
Of course you wrote the fucking book.
I've been called weeaboo many times.
Yeah,
okay, just,
yeah. But like, how do you feel? Because I don't think you're a weeaboo. But I do kind of think as like a 13-year-old Naruto fan as a weeaboo, like whatever that means. Like, I know what's your take on that? Is it all right? You know, is it hey? You know, I was into like shit when I was a kid.
Yeah, right.
You know,
I don't think that we should. The thing is I'm not sure how many of you are anime and manga fans or stuff like that, but the fact of the matter is we're all watching cartoons. We're all reading comic books. To the rest of the world, we suck pretty hard.
Yeah.
There's no reason for like everybody else, like in the community, to talk about you suck more than me.
Yeah.
Why bring that hatred into the community, man? I think that really, you know, we should join together and say, yeah. I mean, let's be friends because you suck, I suck, we all suck. Let's have like this dominion of suck going on. Let's transform the world.
So the Japanese far right obviously hate gaijin. Like they're like the clan of Japan, the Uyoku. They fucking hate gaijin. But there is actually one group that hates gaijin more than the Uyoku, and that's other gaijin.
Yeah.
Like, nobody hates gaijin more than other gaijin. There's this weird like I've been here longer. My Japanese is better.
Yeah.
Like, you know, bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think I can see that in the otaku world. It's like no. You're not otaku. You're not. You don't have the stripes. You don't get it.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And I guess that's
qualified
in any subculture. In any subculture, it's like that. Yeah. There's sometimes this lack of camaraderie amongst. But like what you said, okay, look, we're all reading comic books. Like, let's, you know, why bicker amongst ourselves? You know. It's funny.
Yeah. It's good times. It's good times. So I mean, if you want to kind of go out there and you know do your thing, I think you should do your thing. You should wear your Naruto outfit. I would caution you not to like cut all social ties to be part of like one fan community. Because if you do that, you end up not being able to like deal with people like myself.
Yeah.
Up until I came to Japan, I actually almost never talked to people. In university, I spent like almost every day in my room, locked the door, watched like Nadia. I watched the entire Nadia Secret of Blue Water from front to back, and like I think it was 3 days or something. I almost didn't sleep. And so I mean, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You want to kind of do it, to within the realm of reason, right? Within the realm of reason. That's for my job, man. That's where I'm wearing it every weekend, but I'm out there trying to make people happy in Akihabara, trying to do the thing, let it all hang out there. Do I wear my DBZ outfit on the Yamanote line? Why am I not wearing it today?
Exactly. And I was like, whenever the two studio filmers we did together, when he showed up, he was wearing like normal clothes. And like it was like the last possible moment. Like, are you gonna get changed? And he's like, yeah, I'll get changed now. Like went in, put it on. But is there ever moments when you're walking around Akihabara with the tour group, and you're getting looks, and you're just like, oh my god, what the hell am I doing? Is there ever those moments?
I think that it's a great experiment to wear the suit for all these years. I think it's just my third year wearing actually fourth maybe, wearing the DBZ suit in Akihabara. And I think what's interesting about it is that the response has changed so much. I mean, back in 2006 and 7, it was like, yeah, it's cool. Everybody's cosplaying. Let's do this kind of together. And slowly, I think there's become kind of a little bit of resistance to that kind of expressive otaku behavior. And so I think that as part of my research, it's really interesting. And as part of the tour thing, I think also it's really useful to kind of get people riled up and get them excited and stuff, and also to interact with people on the streets. But am I going to wear my suit to university? Maybe not. Right. And it's kind of like for a certain time and place, it works. I think. But.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. There's a time and place. If there is no time and place for you, then you have a problem. Probably. If you're living in character full time, that might be an issue. Someone asked me what character I would be. I have no idea. I've seen at most maybe 15, 20 seconds of any given anime. I've read some manga. Every now and then I buy Young Jump in the train station, and I mostly do that to brush up on my Japanese reading. But yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin on what character I would dress up as.
There's actually not that many gaijin cosplayers. If you go to Comic-Con and you just take the meishi, the name cards of all the gaijin cosplayers, then you'll know them all.
Yeah.
There's really not that many. Versus Ball from Gundam. That actually would work. The Gundam.
Actually, I was in the Mossberger in Ikebukuro, and there was just this absolutely just gorgeous Western woman wearing like this full-on gothic outfit with piercings, and like it worked perfectly for her. And I was like, yeah, I could deal with that kind of cosplay. If that's her thing, she wants to wear it all the time, like a corset, and like it was like, all right, I'm okay with that. That's how I like to see cosplay being done.
But if you're gonna do it, I think you're gonna have to just go out there and do it. I mean, there's no consistency to my argument here, but I think that also, if you're going to cosplay, you pick the time, you pick the place you think is appropriate, then I think you got to go out. You got to go all out. It's like you got to get in character, you got to interact, you got to really, I think, be that character. So
and also it's like this is hard for me to admit. It's like I like just like shitting on America, but one of the things I can definitely say Americans miss out on in life compared to the Japanese. They have this incredible ability to not take themselves so goddamn seriously. And there's so many things like with cosplaying or like theme restaurants or karaoke, like where if you brought like a pack of dudes in there, like from the States, they would all be like, this is so fucking gay. There's no way I'm gonna do that's so fucking gay. I'm not gonna fucking, that's gay. No, I'm not gonna do that's gay. And it's like, dude, just like give up, like let go a little bit of your self-image for a second and try that. It's actually fun, like, and Japanese people have this ability to like just like in any age, anytime. Like I remember we did maybe one of the first or second episodes of Tokyo Eye we did it's like 3 years ago. We did a thing on theme restaurants and cosplaying in general, and we were talking about the Matsuken Samba, which was like, that was pretty mainstream. Matsuken is a famous, like very, very serious dramatic actor in tiger dramas, which are like samurai period dramas, and he came out with this song called the Matsuken Samba, where he's wearing this big like glittery like sparkling kimono, and like, he's got twirlers, and he was dancing and singing the Matsuken Samba, and so like everybody started doing it, and it was like there was even like one time the police had a special event where they had the police officers dressed up in the Matsuken outfit, stopping drivers and reminding them to wear seatbelts, but it was like police officers dressed up in this like glittery kimono, and like you could not get a New York City police officer to dress up like that, but it was this level of like, what, it's funny, it's funny, and it's like, who gives a shit? So you look a little silly, you're not going to die, but there really is this like, especially I think with American men, this like self-image thing that prevents them from unwinding or letting loose or having a little bit of freedom in that way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that definitely maybe taking yourself a little bit too seriously, taking yourself too seriously, and not kind of just letting go and going with the flow or something like that. I mean, yeah, I certainly try not to take myself seriously. So that's
exactly. It was like, and even in the episode that we just did, where we got John to dress up in the maid outfit.
That was great, actually.
Of course, he's like, yeah, I don't really think I want footage of me out there in a maid costume. And I was like, dude, look at where you are, look at what this is, it will be funny.
Did I make it in there?
It did. They actually cut that originally, and then we all complained. It was like, oh come on, you've got to show that, and so they put it in later over the studio conversation.
That's good.
But it was like, but it was, and I would have felt the same way. I would have been like, yeah, I don't really think I want me dressed in a maid outfit on TV. But it's fucking funny, it's interesting, why not? But it's like, live the moment. But seriously, so many people would be just like, oh, I don't know, I don't my self-image. Oh, I don't want people to think that I'm weird, So there's a great amount of freedom in the otaku society, and I give them points for that.
Why are people throwing rocks at Pepler?
They want me to host the show.
I see. Okay, all right.
Chris does a very competent job. He has a beautiful voice. John replaced me as the foreign idiot. I would note though that Danya is a woman and she thinks Pepler is cool, and Bonzi is a guy and appears to not like it. I think there's a gender thing there as well.
Yeah. I think definitely, is the self-image strong in Japan? Yeah, it's definitely strong, but I think it's based on time, place, and the manner, right? Yeah. So like, if you're in Akihabara, then you can have a good time. I've seen salarymen go into a maid cafe and they get their pink parfait and they blow the candles out or whatever and they go, yeah, I'm way cute, or whatever. Yeah. So I mean, at that time, it's okay. When he goes back to the office, he's going to be a total salaryman, corporate worker, right?
Exactly.
So I think that there's more of a flexibility based on time and place. Like, most people wouldn't identify themselves as, for example, gay, right? But if you go to a certain quarter of Tokyo, there might be a place there where it's possible in that place at that time to be gay, right? Or to have like a homosexual relationship. So I think that really your actions are less tied to who you are and more tied to the place, which is different, I would think, Akane.
And actually, that's the one thing I have to add to my praise of Japanese, freedom. It's very, very limited to time and place. Like, it's very much like they would do this stuff and let loose in this situation, but maybe not at like the office Bonenkai or something like that. It's certain situations, certain places and times, it's okay, and then other situations where it wouldn't be. Like, maybe hanging out with certain friends they would not do it, but with other friends they would. Yeah. And Chris, by the way, I have to point out is he's a radio DJ, so he's really a radio guy. So he doesn't do a lot of but that's like on radio you have to, because otherwise people can't see you. Like, you have to constantly be making noise on radio, so that you're always like in the mind's eye. So that's why he does that. But I think he does a good job at the show. Of course, I mean, if he fell down a flight of stairs and I got his job, I mean, who would be sad? But, oh well.
So Disneyland in the teacup? Are you serious? Like, if 5 guys were together in the teacup at Disneyland and they're like, hee hee hee, do you think that would be okay? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just my family who's like...
Yeah, maybe it's me too. If I saw a bunch of dudes, like, riding the teacup ride, part of me would be like, that's pretty gay.
I think that, like, masculinity in the United States, and this has been argued by many people, is based on a certain kind of homophobia. Yeah. And so you have to kind of, I'm not a woman, I'm not gay, I'm a man, right? That's the way that you define yourself. It's a negative against women and homosexuals.
Which I've been watching, again, the show Rescue Me, which is the thesis statement of the entire 5 seasons of the show, is like, because it's all about, like, men in a firehouse, and like literally every episode revolves around people calling each other faggots. And that's male bonding.
Rescue Me is manly man. Yeah, that's manliness right there.
It is. But that's changing. I mean, like, the metrosexual thing in American urban centers happened for a while. It existed, but then it kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
It kind of disappeared. Yeah.
But there was like, I think it's actually on air in the United States right now. There's a cell phone commercial. I think it's for Verizon, right?
Yeah.
And in the commercial, it's like, this is a man's phone. It's not like porcelain. It's not a doll. It's not a Barbie. It's not shiny or flickering or anything. This is like a tank. It's a robot. This is like a saw going through a banana or something. And they're throwing rocks at the metrosexual, what do you call it? Like the mannequins, right?
Yeah.
And so I mean, there's all this violence and anger against.
It's like the other favorite one was like the G-Shock watch. It's like, you could throw this watch off a 7th floor building and it would be fine. It's like, why would you be throwing your watch?
Why would you want to
off
do that? Because you're violent.
Why do you need a watch that's indestructible?
Because you want to be a robot. You are a cyborg. That's why you want to ride the gun.
Exactly.
Saw Through the Banana was a really weird part of this commercial. You should look it up. So it's like Verizon, I think Google was the two together or something. But in this commercial, they had a saw like going. They threw a banana at it. The banana goes poof, and just blows up on the screen. And apparently, this was supposed to be some kind of message about masculinity of the phone. Like the saw is really strong, and the banana is really weak. So the saw like just buzzes through it at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It was strange. It was a very strange commercial.
For me, it's beer commercials here. I mean, beer commercials. Basically, you've got two options: horses or hot women. That's really the only two, or maybe a car. Actually, but I think that's illegal now. That's the only thing you can put in a commercial advertisement for beer. But I remember, like in summer, I was watching this Asahi commercial, and this guy comes running up from the beach with this bucket full of clams. And he's like, "Yeah, I got clams!" And everyone's like, "Woo!" and high-fiving, and then they're roasting the clams on the barbecue, and they're chugging that beer.
Fire is always manly.
Really?
If you got fire and you're burning something, I think it's manly.
But for me, that's seafood.
Roasting seafood. If it's roasting, it's okay.
Oh yeah, I guess the barbecue was involved, so I guess it still is manly. But there is definitely a schism between Japanese masculinity and Western concepts of masculinity. And actually, this is an age-old thing. Like, how many good male Japanese friends do you have?
How do you mean good friends?
Like, your bro. Like, you call him up, you guys go out for drinks, you're tight, you talk about stuff.
I'm actually surprisingly unpopular. I'm at home every day watching anime. I don't have that many friends. People hate me.
Well, not friends, but like, I mean, guy friends. I've had almost none in my time, and I've met Japanese dudes that we've hung out, but at some point, like, there's always that moment, like, where you're in like some bar with your Japanese guy friend, and you're like, hey, yeah, let's go talk to some ladies, and then you go talk to some ladies, and then the ladies only talk to you because you're the interesting foreign guy, and the Japanese dude then hates you. Like there's this weird, like, there's definitely a weird tension between often like Western men and Japanese men. And on top of that, like, I've been rejected by women since I could walk, basically. I think my first girlfriend was in kindergarten, right? So I've been like, just as all American guys are trained to walk up to women you don't know and be like, hey, want to get a coffee or something? And they say, no, get away, freak. Or, occasionally they say yes. It's a percentage game. But like, Japanese men can make it through their entire life without ever walking up to a woman they don't know and talking to her. Like, it's just not part of like guy training here. And so, like, Western guys quite easily can meet women here because we have this ingrained sense of, oh, she's cute, I should go talk to her.
That depends on the person, though. But I've never walked up to somebody I don't know and been like, "Hey, how are you doing?" It doesn't happen that way. I mean, maybe if it's like a online anime girl, I might say, "Hey, how are you, Shiori-chan?" But when it's like not in a dating simulator game, I'm not talking to people I don't know.
Okay.
So yeah,
I tend to. That's why I get shot down a lot, but not always. That's the key. But Japanese guys just don't have that as part of their like skill set. And like, I remember one time, I think I told the story online before, but like one time I was at a restaurant with this Japanese dude, and we're having some drinks, and like over on the side, these two Japanese girls, and they're kind of cute, and he mentions like, oh wow, they're kind of cute, and I'm like, oh really? Like, hey, pretty ladies, hello, and they kind of look over, and we start talking, and he just sits there quietly for like 45 minutes and says nothing. And I'm like trying to, keep the conversation going. Like, oh, where are you from? Oh, yeah, okay, that's great. I'm trying to like do it. And finally he has to go. So he's like, yeah, I have to go. I'll see you later. And all right, bye. And then later on, like, I was like, whoa, dude, what was going on there? I went to jump in there. He's like, you didn't introduce me. I was like, what? I didn't introduce you?
No and right
like,
there.
What are you talking about? I didn't introduce you. You just like lean forward and start talking, but there really is this, like, it's a total different, world. So like basic concepts of like politeness, masculinity, all these things are so different that often I find it difficult to be like bros with a Japanese dude. I have many female friends who are just friends, like just friends. you know, and it is never an issue, you know. But with dudes, it's sometimes more difficult, I think.
I've never heard that one before, though. So the non-introduction was a cock block. That's terrible.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had to introduce you to the women I don't know, you know.
I don't think they have unagi here, actually. So
They don't have your. I did a video on unagi briefly. It's buried inside the video I did about the stimulus check the government gave me. So if you want to look at unagi, it's in I don't know what number it was, but the one about stimulus money, I think it's called. But yeah, I mean, like seriously, it's we were raised differently, you know.
I think that it still does depend on the person.
No, it does.
I was raised in a media environment where, you know, unless I get the flag that gives me some text options here, I'm not going to choose the right option. So if there's no kind of drop-down text choices, dialogue choices, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that, you know, that kind of unscripted social interaction is really difficult. So for me, it makes a lot of sense the way that, you know, it's working.
So I'm a stand-up comedian by trade, so being publicly humiliated is
it's a good thing.
fairly common for me. So TQ Sam, to give him credit, that man is a monster. Anything that moves, this other YouTube guy, anything that moves, he's like, seriously, you can't go out to a coffee with that guy without like him talking to every woman in the room. And he's just this huge dude, like, but he's very charismatic. In his own way. And he wants to spread his loving, yeah. Different characters. And then I met very agrarian. Is that the word? Like open and like
gregarious.
Gregarious, yeah. Gregarious Japanese guys. That more often than not, they've lived abroad for some amount of time and then come back to Japan, and they've learned like how to like interact with people. But yeah, actually, and the few Japanese guy friends I have like are all guys who have lived abroad for a while. Like they've lived in California or someplace like that for a number of years. Have you experienced any racism? Yeah, actually, that's a good topic. Actually, I've said it before. What's your take on is Japan a racist nation?
Well, I think that if you look at the laws, just from the laws, yeah, I think that there seems to be a lot of discrimination against immigration, for example, and it's really difficult to become a national, for example. It takes many, many years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emphasis on, for example, blood and lineage, which would by definition be somehow racist, right? So it's really difficult for someone who's not of the right blood, birth, and lineage to become a citizen or to become part of the certain in-groups and stuff like that. There's always a barrier, I think.
And even if you are a naturalized citizen of Japan, if you are not Japanese by blood, you're not really Japanese. Like in Japan, bloodline and citizenship are the same thing, essentially. Like it's very difficult to immigrate in. But like that being said, in your day-to-day life, how much have you experienced racism?
Oh, what's that? I experienced it. Oh, well.
Like actually in your day-to-day life, like.
Well, for example,
like honky go home. Is that something that people say to you on the street often?
Not on the street, but I think you get a lot of this stuff on, for example, Knee Channel. If you go on there, you get a lot of negativity towards foreigners or something like that. Or there was a time in Akihabara also where foreigners were very, very unpopular, and there was people who were like saying, you know, we don't want foreigners here, we don't want to talk to foreigners, and that kind of stuff. So I do get the impression that I think it's true in any country, right? But when there's kind of a threat to a certain group of people, there's always kind of a playing of the race card, which is not a good thing, of course, but.
Well, for me, like in my day-to-day life, I've experienced little to almost zero racism. One time I've been kicked out of, not allowed entry. I wanted to go to film for a YouTube video, this erotic ear cleaning place, and they were like, no gaijin. So sometimes like sex shops, stuff like that will refuse you. But like, I've never been refused entry to a place because of being a gaijin. I've never had any negative experience with an individual. One time I was walking through Ikebukuro, some guy gave me the finger. I'm assuming just because I'm white. But that was like one in 8 years, 2 experiences. But like, you know, when you're looking for an apartment, That's a big one. Like landlords refusing to rent to a foreigner. That's common. But grin and bear it for me. But like day-to-day life, I don't get the sense that it's a racist nation. For me personally, I've not had any negative experiences.
Well, it really just depends, right? Like you're saying, on your experiences. I think if you put yourself in certain situations, for sure.
Like, because I know people who have it all the time. They're constantly like, "Oh my God, I had this, and I had this, and I had this," and like I'm sitting there thinking, like, "Well, this guy's kind of an asshole." Maybe it's because you're an asshole that you're running into these issues, not because the entire world is against you. I think some people misinterpret situations, or it's because of their own personality flaws, that they interpret everything. Like they get dumped by their Japanese girlfriend, and they say, "Oh, yeah, it's because she's racist." It's like, no, maybe she just realized that you're a dick. But they have this. They can view everything through that. Everything is like, oh, what is it? Because I'm white, kind of mindset. So things that really maybe would be unconnected to it, they assume everything is because of that.
Right. For sure. It's definitely a tendency to feel that way.
But again, like the no gaijin thing, I've literally only experienced that once, and it was trying to get into a place where like semi-dressed women clean your ears. I've never walked into like a Yoshinoya and then like, oh, no gaijin, like 99.99999% of businesses, legit businesses, like have no issue with it whatsoever. So I don't know. It's a really tough question, though. It's a really tough question, and it's like in every country it exists. People always ask, like, is Japan racist? Well, every country is racist.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's not a country on this planet that doesn't deal with race issues.
It's just a different formula, maybe. Like in Japan, it could be based on blood, but in the United States, it's based on how well you speak English or how long you've been in the country or something like that.
Yeah.
So it could be just different patterns of racism, for sure. I think language is a big one in the United States. If you don't speak fluent English, then you get a lot of criticism, I think.
Yeah. But as a Japanese resident, like, the biggest thing that pisses me off day to day, and it does not fall under racism, is when people speak to me in English. In day to day, like I was just telling them before, I was at Krispy Kreme, and they're like, they're trying to use their like shitty English on me, and then when I go to check out, I buy a coffee, and she's like, "Oh, you get a free donut with a coffee." So why the fuck didn't you tell me that when I was buying the donuts over there? And it was because she couldn't probably explain that in English, but she just freaking said it in Japanese. I would have understood, And so there's these little moments like where they're pointing at stuff and they're like trying to communicate with me in sign language. And I'm just like, I speak Japanese. This is Japan. I speak Japanese. That always irritates me a little bit. Akane, what was that for? Man. Did I miss something he said? Oh well, yeah. As I said, my balance was a little bit.
Wow.
All right. Any other questions, folks? A racism one. That's a real. It's a real law killer, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of kills the mood, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Start talking about racism. Might as well talk about nationalism now.
Yeah, it's of course the same thing. Because I'm somewhat of a Japanese nationalist. Like I think foreigners who are here more than a couple of years should be like required to learn Japanese.
That's true.
And that's like a basic tenet of like what the Uyoku say. That if foreigners going to live here, they learn the language. I agree with that. Where do you see anime and manga going in the next decade? It's a good question.
Anime and manga in the next decade. Probably it's going to become a smaller industry, would be my...
the anime and manga in the next decade.
I think it's going to become a smaller industry. There's going to be fewer people who are doing it professionally. There's going to be more people who are doing it in fan groups. The doujinshi and the dating simulator model will continue to grow. So there'll be more and more characters. There'll be more and more emphasis on characters, more and more emphasis on affect and moe. and there'll probably be less interest from overseas. And so I think that probably there's going to be
I think that the Japan
size.
boom is probably already starting to tail off a bit, you know.
So I mean, it's good for me because I like moe anime, but you know, I'm here, so it doesn't matter for me. I'm just going to keep consuming Japanese stuff. But I think for overseas, it's going to be a problem. So it's going to be, you have to look for other places for creative contents of the kind that we've become accustomed to. If you don't like the moe model, you're going to have to probably look other places for.
So Andy-san asks, it's a good question. Is there a moe bubble, and could it burst?
There is, actually, it's already started. So right now, there's so many shows that are being shown after midnight that nobody's really keeping up anymore. So they're consuming just for the characters, and they're not even knowing what the characters are. So the shows are actually losing whatever few sponsors they did have. So starting this year, actually, the number has gone down. For the last couple of years, it's been going up, right? There's been this kind of spike in moe animation, but it's going down now. So I think that probably there will be a decrease going on here, because I mean, just think about how many people are consuming this stuff, and also the economic conditions right now. It doesn't make sense to have so much stuff being produced. So it's a bubble that probably should be burst. And also, I think once it's burst, there might be the potential for other kinds of storytelling, other kinds of anime and manga to be created. So I personally don't think it's going to happen that way. But if the moe bubble does, recede, then the moe tide does recede, there might be some other things coming up in the future. So we'll have to see.
Actually, this is a good question. Do you think the fan subbing, scanlating has a negative effect on the industry or a positive effect?
I think there's a lot of people who are saying that it's a negative effect, but I disagree. I think that actually scanlations and fan subs are a positive effect. Because what they do is they get the message out, and people who say, like, I watched Sorono Toshimono and I liked it, right? Because I watched that Flying Panties episode and it was great, right? Yeah. So as soon as people start talking about stuff like that, I think that it really creates a buzz, and that buzz gets people on top. So I think that it's not so much that. The problem with animation today is that there's no base, right? There's no creators, animators, mangaka who are making a decent living. So there's no people who are doing it in long term. So there's no actual system that's creating a long-term creative group. It's like bringing up the next generation of creators. Who are also, there's also a problem with where people are being trained, right? They're not being trained in universities, they're being trained in doujinshi circles, which kind of creates an affect character-based media that's more targeted towards fans. And if that's where creators are being trained, then I think you end up with a kind of a problem, right? With moving it overseas or finding other kinds of storytelling.
From like my world of comedy, the best example I can think of is at one point Bakafish, the user on YouTube, was like the third most subbed user on YouTube. This is way back in the early days of YouTube though, but it was fan subbed versions of every hard gay sketch that he did, and so they had everything hard gay did they would sub and upload onto YouTube. And he was building this huge cult following, and that's why so many people outside of Japan know hard gay. And Yoshimoto Kogyo, forward-thinking people that they are, immediately put the kibosh on that and pulled Bakafish from that, and they went after them and got rid of all of it. And now hard gay's career in Japan is basically dead.
It's over.
If they had allowed that to continue to flourish, he could have had a whole second career and other income source in doing live events or comedy stuff specifically for the U.S. Because I mean, he was really becoming a subculture hero. But as soon as that got taken down from YouTube, he kind of disappeared from the North American scene. But it was just it was a whole potential market that they were building for Yoshimoto Kogyo for free. So I have no idea why they thought it was in their best interest to pull those videos. Because were they going to make money rebroadcasting that some other way? No.
I don't think
none of that content has been re-released on DVD or sold in any other way. They were just building a fan base for this guy. But they're like, oh, they're stealing our copyrighted stuff. We must stop them. So seriously, I think they just cut off a money stream, potential money stream.
So the ways to kind of use digital content, to use fan subbing or use scanlations in a positive way, that might be the next step. Trying to find ways to integrate this. So, I mean, actually, a lot of stuff I'm watching now, I'm watching fan subs, right? Because actually it's so much faster online and so much higher quality than what you get from Japanese stores. Of course, I'm also buying the DVDs once they come out. But at the same time, like Soro no Toshimono, those are great fan subs, right?
Yeah.
So you mean, if they could find a way to harness this, then they would save themselves a lot of money, right? Because actually, they don't have to pay people to translate. The translation is worse anyway.
Yeah.
And you get all the distribution rights and stuff like that overseas.
Yeah.
If they could kind of harness this fan activity, they might be able to really do good things for the industry about it.
There's a great article I read about the music industry, and this editorial the guy was saying, like, for years and years and years, people have been paying like $20 for essentially what is like 10 cents in actual product value, like the CD, the cover, and stuff like that. What the industry should have been doing is building more value into the actual physical CDs, liner notes, like little mini books, photos, things like that come with the CD to give people a higher incentive to actually buy the CD. But once, like, digital age came out, like Napster and stuff like that, really it became apparent that was it. It was just that small digital file is what you were paying $20 for, and so nobody had a desire to buy like a physical copy of it anymore. But that's why, like, artists, like musicians, are still making money on live shows and merch, but the recording industry itself, which is really only selling data, has no product anymore. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, iTunes is belatedly doing it. But yeah, I think like they all missed the boat. Like when Napster came out, everybody was just trying to shut it down, and it's like you can't. It's a hydra, and like you cut off one head and it comes out in another place. They're never going to stop that. They have to look for other ways to make it economically viable, like Hulu or something like that.
At the same time, though, if you're not paying for the DVDs and stuff like that, you're not paying for the actual content, then that makes it so that the market is run by merchandising and figures and toys and like post-media stuff. So because of that, I think that you have to have characters. So in a way, you could argue that the Moe boom is because people actually have turned online and they've cut the throat, right? I mean, I think that's the argument some people make. So if we don't like Moe, then we should be buying more Gundam stuff, right?
Yeah.
We should be buying more Macross stuff before the Macross Frontier, right? But the truth of the matter is, the Macross Frontier sells a lot more because it fits the model now. People aren't paying to watch the show. So.
Vocaloids. God, I don't want to think about the future with like we're totally gonna be out of work.
But the Vocaloids, there's an interesting story about that actually, because to get on the Oricon charts, you don't have to actually sell that many albums, right? It's not that hard to get on the Oricon charts. And the fan-produced like Vocaloid CDs that are on for sale at Toranana and Akihabara are they're selling way more than a lot of the stuff that's making it onto the Oricon charts.
Really?
So like the Dojinshi stuff, like the Dojin stuff, right? That's being produced like using Vocaloids is huge, big business going on. It's like all outside of the official channels, right? So I think that you're right. I mean, the old model of production distribution might be a thing of the past.
Yeah, and it's like I'm more likely to buy an album at a concert, like when I've just seen this person, I feel some connection to the artist, and I'm like, oh wow, this is cool. I want to support this person, so I'll buy an album. In fact, the last few albums I bought were by this woman, Kat McDowell, who's a New Zealand singer-songwriter here in Tokyo. And it's I've gone to see her shows, like, wow, she's a nice person, I want to support this person, so I go and buy the album, like literally buy the album at the merch stand there. But I don't think I would have bought it because I saw a 10-minute clip of it, a 10-second clip of it on some TV show. And I'm like, I gotta go out to Tower Records and buy that, So, yeah, who knows? Wow, so we've covered quite a bit today.
Yeah, you're late for your meeting, actually.
I pushed it back. So last thing, goodbye, and sum up. So I just want to say thank you, Patrick, for coming by and chatting with us.
My pleasure.
This whole area is something I know very little about, but I've learned much today. Once again, I want to promote his book, Otaku Encyclopedia, which is available apparently in Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, everywhere. Get a copy if you want to support the man. Also, is there any other place like we could find you on the internet? Like, do you have a blog, things like that?
Sure. I kind of am a contributor on otaku2.com. I co-founded it a couple years ago. So otaku2.com has some stuff on there, and also I'm contributing to CNN Go.
Oh yeah, I just found CNN Go recently, and I know like half the people writing on
It's
that.
nice, right?
Actually, no, I think I may have read one of the articles you put up there. You did one about burgers.
No, not burgers. Meg cafes.
No, that's the other Patrick. Yeah, CNN Go. Is it CNN? I don't know what that.
CNNGo.com, I think, probably.
.com. Yeah, that's weird that they're running into this new industry. They're kind of doing like these little cottage CNN websites for major cities around the world, almost like a timeout guide style for cities. It's interesting. Any other places they doing for you?
You can always find me in Akihabara.
The HIS tour, if people visit.
Yeah. The HIS tour is always on there, so it's available each week. Also, there's an audio tour that was just released. The audio tour is from White Rabbit Press. So, in case you can't catch me on Sunday, there's an audio tour of the Akihabara. There's an audio version of the Akihabara tour. So.
Cool. Cool. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you guys for hanging out and chatting with us. I don't know, how do otakus say goodbye?
Okay. I look like a fat bastard because I am a fat bastard. That's how I say goodbye.
That's a nice sign off. Thank you folks for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same bat channel. Later. Bye.
We have to go to the bathroom right now.
Cool.
いやいや、あえてつけた。
Later.